Chapter 1. Qing City Yi Clan Ancestral Shrine. Ancestors. Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be removed and Yi Lang will take over. The speaker was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a young man with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral shrine. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old. Her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her dress. Her face was sickly pale and she looked weak. There was a hint of fear in her eyes. The little girl's name was Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl named Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral shrine and said timidly, "Grand Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you remove his title for no reason?" The Grand Elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. "This is a family matter. Why are you interrupting?" Yi Ling was obviously afraid. She did not dare to look at the Grand Elder directly. However, she did not leave. Instead, she summoned her courage and walked into the ancestral shrine. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan and we don't know if he is dead or alive. However, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove his title as the crown prince. This is really unfair. How dare you?" The Grand Elder suddenly said angrily, "It's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to remove his title or not. Someone drag her away." At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly smiled and said, "She should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The Grand Elder said coldly, "Then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi mansion rushed in. Yi Ling clenched his fists and said angrily, "It's not fair. My brother has risked his life for the family for so many years. Even now he is risking his life for the family. The family is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the newly appointed crown prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered. "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the heir's position. What are you shouting about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Pah! The crisp sound of a slap rang out. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. Instead, she clutched her cheek tightly. Yi Lang sized up the guard and asked with a smile, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. "I will go through fire and water for the crown prince. I will do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking toward the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. In the ancestral hall, all the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. In the distance, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face instantly turned ferocious. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed drastically. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Bang! Zhang Mu's head was dizzy and he staggered and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop. He rushed toward Zhang Mu again. At this moment, Yi Lang in the ancestral hall suddenly said angrily, "Yi Xian, he is my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression became extremely ugly. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at him. He said ferociously, "He is your man?" As he spoke, he suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's entire face was instantly mangled, and he howled incessantly. "Young master, save me." Yi Xian paid no attention to Zhang Mu, who was howling for help, and he walked over to Yi Ling's side. When he saw Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian instantly felt like his heart was being stabbed by a knife. He clenched his fists tightly while his entire body trembled slightly. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears instantly surged out from her eyes. "Big brother, it hurts so much." Yi Xian's expression became ferocious when he heard this. In the next moment he charged over to Zhang Mu, and then he suddenly stomped his foot against Zhang Mu's head. Bang! Zhang Mu's head struck the stone steps, and it instantly exploded apart while blood sprayed everywhere. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. However, Yi Xian hadn't stopped. He suddenly gazed at Yi Lang and spoke fiercely, "How dare you touch my younger sister? Fuck your ancestors." As he spoke, he directly charged towards Yi Lang. The Grand Elder's expression changed drastically within the ancestral shrine. "How dare you?" As soon as he spoke, he suddenly tapped the tip of his foot on the ground and slid over to Yi Xian, and then he slapped his palm towards Yi Xian. His palm carried a strong gust of wind, and it was sharp and piercing. A wisp of a ferocious smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and in an instant his right sleeve was blasted apart. In the next moment he suddenly smashed his fist towards the Grand Elder's fist. Bang! A low explosion resounded as their fists collided. Yi Xian retreated to the door, and the Grand Elder took a few steps back as well. Everyone here was extremely shocked when they witnessed this scene. In Azure Prefecture, martial artists were divided into the first-grade body tempering realm, the second-grade strength training realm, the third-grade inner strengthening realm, the fourth-grade dual cultivation realm, the fifth-grade unending realm, the sixth-grade chi change realm, and above that was the chi controlling realm. The Grand Elder was a solid chi controlling realm martial artist. However, Yi Xian was only a fifth-grade unending realm martial artist, which was 2 realms apart from the Grand Elder. However, Yi Xian was only at the fifth-grade unending realm. The Grand Elder was extremely shocked as well. He knew that Yi Xian was extremely talented and was the young master of the Yi clan that had been meticulously fostered by the Yi clan. Moreover, he'd fought to the death for the Yi clan all year round. However, he'd never imagined that Yi Xian's combat strength would actually be so formidable. His wings have hardened. The murderous intent in the depths of the Grand Elder's eyes grew even stronger when he thought of this. The Grand Elder stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, how dare you attack the young master in public?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "The young master?" The Grand Elder sneered. "Yi Xian, I forgot to tell you this. You've been stripped of your position as the young master. From now on, Yi Lang is the young master of the Yi clan." Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. "I've been stripped of my position as the young master?" The Grand Elder said coldly, "This is the unanimous decision of all the elders." Yi Xian grinned maliciously. "I've been fighting to the death outside, but you've stripped me of my position as the young master?" The Grand Elder sneered. He pointed at Yi Lang, who was not far away. "Do you know who he is?" Without waiting for Yi Xian's reply, he continued, "Yi Lang is the Heaven's Chosen One, a newly awakened Heaven's Chosen One." Yi Xian was stunned. What was the Heaven's Chosen One? The so-called Heaven's Chosen One was a person chosen by the heavens. In the entire firmament world there was such a group of people. They might be mediocre when they were young, but one day they would suddenly awaken. After awakening, they would be like a completely different person. Not only would their cultivation speed increase, but they would also have countless fortuitous encounters. They were like the darlings of the world. The firmament world was divided into 3 continents. He was in the Qingzhou. There were hundreds of small and big countries in the Qingzhou. He was now in the Jiang country. In the past few decades, there were less than 10 Heaven's Chosen Ones in the Jiang country, and all of them would become influential figures in the future. Yi Xian slowly clenched his fists. He knew that the Yi clan was going to give up on him. Not only would they give up on him, but they might even kill him. At this moment, Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "Elders, this Yi Xian killed someone in public and attacked the Grand Elder. According to the clan's rules, what should he do?" Everyone looked at Yi Lang. Yi Lang smiled coldly. "According to the clan's rules, he should be beaten to death, shouldn't he?" The elders nodded in agreement. Yi Lang was the Heaven's Chosen One, and he was the Grand Elder's grandson. Naturally, they would not offend Yi Lang and the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder looked at Yi Xian coldly. "Someone's here." Soon, dozens of Yi clan's guards appeared outside the ancestral shrine. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "In the Yi clan there is a rule. In order to convince everyone, The crown prince must not reject the challenge of anyone from the younger generation of the Yi clan. As he spoke, he looked straight at Yi Lang. I challenge you. Yi Lang squinted his eyes and smiled. Challenge? Sure, but we have to go to the Ring of Life and Death. Do you dare? The Ring of Life and Death. The crowd was in an uproar. In the Yi clan, once there was an irreconcilable conflict, it could be resolved in the Ring of Life and Death. Once one entered the Ring of Life and Death, one was responsible for one's own life and death. Yi Xian laughed coldly. Come, let's go to the Ring of Life and Death. Yi Lang shook his head instead. We'll ascend the Ring of Life and Death a month from now. At that time, the patriarch will emerge from his closed-door cultivation, and will fight to the death. He can be a witness so that he doesn't say that we tried to harm you. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, all right. As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't say anything else. He just carried Yi Ling in his arms and walked out of the ancestral shrine. After he watched Yi Xian and Yi Ling leave, the Grand Elder gazed at Yi Lang and said, he fights to the death with others all year round, and his combat strength is extraordinary. Are you confident in your ability to defeat him? A wisp of a ferocious smile arose on the corners of Yi Lang's mouth while the killing intent in his eyes seemed material. I've just awakened, so my soul hasn't fused completely with this body. Otherwise, crushing him would be as easy as crushing an ant. There'll be no match for me, Yi Lang, in a month from now. When he heard this, the Grand Elder nodded slightly and smiled. That's good. As soon as he finished speaking, he gazed at an elder by his side and said in a light voice, the person I sent to Southern Mountain hasn't returned, and I noticed that Yi Xian's face is pale and slightly abnormal. Yiku, go investigate what happened to Yi Xian at Southern Mountain. The elder nodded, turned around, and left. Yi Xian carried Yi Ling back to his room in the courtyard. He placed Yi Ling lightly on the bed, and then he rubbed Yi Ling's slightly swollen face as he said in a gentle voice, does it hurt? Yi Ling wiped the tears off her face. No, it doesn't hurt anymore. Brother, on what basis did they remove you from the position of heir? You fought to the death for the clan, so on what basis did Yi Lang, who's chosen by the heavens, remove you? This isn't fair. Yi Xian shook his head. He gently rubbed Yi Ling's slightly swollen face. There's no such thing as fairness or unfairness. This time it's because I'm useless. I couldn't protect you, that's why you got beaten up. Yi Ling shook her head, and her tears flowed out again. Yes, I'm useless. I can't help you at all. I'm just a burden to you. Yi Xian smiled. He gently scratched Yi Ling's little nose. Idiot, I'm your brother. It's only right for a brother to protect his little sister. Do you understand? Yi Ling got up and kissed Yi Xian's forehead. Brother, when I recover, I'll also cultivate. I'll also protect you. Yi Xian smiled. He gently rubbed Yi Ling's head. Okay, brother will definitely cure your illness. It's too late. Rest first. Yi Ling nodded. I want to hear a story. Yi Xian smiled. Once upon a time there was a temple on a mountain. In the temple there was... Yi Ling rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Brother, you've told this story for many years. But I like to hear it. Half an hour later Yi Ling fell asleep on the bed. Yi Xian covered Yi Ling with a blanket. He sat on the ground. He gently lifted his robe. There was a long scar on his abdomen. It was still bleeding. In order to fight for the mine, he fought a bloody battle with the 12 people of the Li family. Later on, he was careless and was ambushed by a mysterious person. Although he killed the person's saber also pierced his dantian. His dantian was probably broken. His dantian was broken. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. This meant that he could only cultivate his body. He could no longer reach the qi-changing realm. Not being able to cultivate was secondary. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Ling on the bed. Yi Ling's face was still pale. She was covered with 3 blankets. Even so, she still felt very cold. Typhoid fever. Yi Ling had been attacked by the cold when she was young. Her body was weak all year round. If she hadn't risked her life to become the crown prince and made countless contributions to the Yi family, she would have died a long time ago. Yi Xian slowly clenched his right hand. Now that he was no longer the crown prince, would the Yi family still provide Yi Ling with medicinal meals every month? Moreover, Yi Ling's illness was getting worse. If he wanted to cure her, he had to go to the imperial city of Jiang Country's Kuraki College. The best doctors in Jiang Country were there. If he wanted to enter Kuraki College, he had to reach the qi-controlling realm before the age of 18. Originally, he had a chance because he would only be 19 in 6 months. However, now that his dantian was shattered, it was almost impossible for him to reach the qi-controlling realm. At this thought, Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Ling, who had already fallen into a dream. No matter the cost, I will cure you. After a while he seemed to have thought of something. He took out a pitch-black ring from his pocket. This ring was left behind by his mother. He only had a vague memory of that woman because she had left when he was 10 years old. That year, at the back door of the Yi mansion, that woman hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Not far behind the woman stood a middle-aged man in a black robe. In fact, the man was not standing but floating. In his memory the man said, "Miss, if you don't leave now, if the clan leader finds out about young master's existence and gets angry, I'm afraid this world will be destroyed. Young master will not be able to survive." Hearing the man's words, the woman gently pushed him away and secretly stuffed the ring into his pocket. Take good care of Ling and yourself. Don't hate mother." After saying this, the woman turned around and left with the man in a black robe. He was stunned for a moment, then chased after them like a madman. Unfortunately, he could not catch up to them because the man in a black robe and the woman were flying. Just like that, he chased and chased until he could not catch them anymore. That woman did not look back either. Just like that, she disappeared into the horizon with the man in a black robe. After a while, Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He gripped the ring tightly in his right hand. His right hand was already injured, so when he exerted force, the wound split open and a drop of blood suddenly dripped onto the black ring. The ring in his hand suddenly trembled. Yi Xian was shocked and hurriedly looked down at the ring in his hand. The moment he lowered his head, the ring suddenly turned into a black light and disappeared into the space between his eyebrows. In an instant, Yi Xian disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already in a boundless starry sky. Not far in front of him floated a black tower. The tower had 12 floors and it just floated there. The tower was surrounded by 4 huge black chains that were as thick as pillars, and at the top of the tower were 3 swords. The entire tower was pitch black and gloomy. Yi Xian suppressed the shock in his heart and looked at the top of the entrance to the first floor. There were 2 blood-red words, prison. And on the 2 sides of the entrance, there were 2 lines of blood-red words that looked like a couplet. On the left side, prison the heavens, prison the earth, prison the gods and demons of all heavens. On the right side, prison the Tao, prison the life, prison the human immortals of all worlds. Chapter 2. Looking at the black pagoda in front of him, Yi Xian's heart was filled with shock. Everything that was happening in front of him had exceeded his understanding. Very quickly he forced himself to calm down. He knew that this could be an opportunity, but of course it could also be dangerous. In the end, Yi Xian chose to open the pagoda door and walk in. Naturally, he wasn't willing to leave now. After entering, Yi Xian looked around. On the walls, there were all sorts of beasts that he had never seen before. Other than that, there were also some purple-gold mysterious runes. Some of the runes were even wriggling. In the end, his gaze landed not far away from him. There a skeleton sat cross-legged. Beside the skeleton there was a long sword. Yi Xian's gaze landed in front of the skeleton. There was a line of words on the ground, "I am the firmament sword master. I started cultivating the sword at the age of 12. At the age of 17 I mastered the sword path. At the age of 21, I was invincible in the firmament world. At the age of 27 I broke my heart with the sword and achieved the supreme sword path. I was trapped in this prison for 1,200 years and was unable to leave the pagoda for my entire life. Today, I know that I am going to die, so I left behind my inheritance in hopes that the future generations will pass it on. If you are sentimental, please take care of the Firmament Sword sect." Firmament Sword Master? Yi Xian frowned. He had never heard of it before. His gaze moved downwards. Below the words there was a fist-sized jade stone. Inheritance stone. Yi Xian's blood instantly boiled. Swordsman. In the entire Qingzhou there were many martial artists. However, swordsmen were extremely rare. They could be said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. It was said that to become a swordsman, one had to have some special spiritual roots. As for spiritual roots, he didn't know anything about them. All he knew was that they were extremely rare. Yi Xian instinctively wanted to go over and take it. However, the moment he walked over, an invisible force blocked him, preventing him from moving forward. Yi Xian was stunned. He couldn't go over? Are you new? At this moment, a woman's voice rang out. Yi Xian was shocked by the sudden voice. He took a few steps back and looked around, but there was no one. Did I mishear? Just as this thought appeared in Yi Xian's mind, the voice sounded again. Who is the Tendo in this realm? Yi Xian was stunned. Tendo? What's that? After a moment of silence, the voice resounded once more. Why are you so weak? No, you weren't locked in here. Yi Xian was confused. At this moment, the mysterious woman was a little surprised. Natural Tao physique is one thing, but you also have two spiritual roots. No wonder the prison pagoda chose you. An innate Taoist aptitude? Dual spiritual roots? Yishen was puzzled. Senior, you are? The mysterious woman said, you are already an adult. Logically speaking, you should be at least in the nether passage realm, so why are you so weak? Furthermore, the foundation of his physical body is so poor that it's simply unsightly. Yishen was speechless. The mysterious woman suddenly asked, how did you cultivate your physical body? Yishen hesitated, then said, it's by lying down, running with weights, hitting the body, etc. The mysterious woman said coldly, are you living in primitive times? Using such an outdated method of cultivation, it's a waste of your physique. A waste of your spiritual roots. Yishen smiled bitterly. Senior, the people of Qingqing all cultivate like this. The woman was silent. Yishen was speechless. He looked around but still couldn't see anyone. This place was full of strangeness. Seeing that the mysterious woman didn't speak, his gaze once again fell on the inheritance stone not far from him, his eyes burning with passion. Do you want to learn the sword? The mysterious woman suddenly asked. Yishen nodded quickly. Yes. Who doesn't want to ride a sword and look down on all things? The mysterious woman said, your dantian is broken, you can't cultivate the inheritance of the swordsman in front of you. Hearing this, Yishen's expression dimmed. His dantian was broken. Not to mention the swordsman, he wouldn't even stand a chance against a normal martial artist. Right now, he could only be considered a martial artist. At this moment, the mysterious woman suddenly said, how about this, I have a sword cultivation method that's different from the others, do you want to learn it? Yishen was stunned, then quickly said, I can learn it without a dantian? The mysterious woman said, it's better without a dantian. I can learn it without a dantian. Yishen was so excited that he almost jumped up, but he forced himself to calm down. He looked around and asked, Senior, do you have any conditions? He knew very well that there was no free lunch in this world. The mysterious woman said, this pagoda was heavily damaged in the past, its 9 Tao laws were scattered around the firmament world, and the seals on each layer were loosened. You're lucky that the swordsman in front of you was already dead, or else you'd be a corpse by now. Yishen, the mysterious woman said again, I know you're very confused about what this pagoda is, but there's no point in telling you. All you need to know is that this pagoda has 12 floors, and each floor imprisons some of the world's top existences. There are humans, spirits, demons, and even a world's Tendo soul. This pagoda used to be able to suppress them, but now that the seals on the pagoda have loosened, it can't suppress them anymore. At this point she paused, then continued, what you need to do is to find the Tao laws of heaven and earth to strengthen this pagoda. Of course you can also let them out. Let them out? Yishen was stunned, then said, what will happen? The mysterious woman said, there are 2 outcomes. First, they kill you and take the pagoda. Second, you suppress them and make them work for you. Of course, with your current strength, the chances of them killing you should be 100%. Yishen smiled bitterly, it was a blessing and a curse. As if thinking of something, Yishen quickly asked, Senior, are you also imprisoned here? The mysterious woman said, no. Yishen asked further, then? The mysterious woman said, you're asking too many questions. Yishen was speechless. The mysterious woman said, you're the master of this pagoda now, and every time you find a Tao law, not only will your strength increase greatly, your control over this pagoda will improve greatly as well. If you're able to find a Tao law, then you'll be able to control the first floor. So long as your enemy isn't too much stronger than you, then you'll be able to utilize this pagoda to draw them in. Now this pagoda doesn't have a single Tao law, so it's completely useless. Moreover, the seals on every single floor are gradually loosening. Once this pagoda collapses completely, the existences that are imprisoned here will be released. At that time your world will probably be doomed. You'll be the first to die. Yishen spoke in a low voice, Senior, do you want me to save all living beings in the world? The mysterious woman said, what you need to save is yourself. The ones imprisoned in the 2nd floor aren't good people. If I'm not wrong, the 2nd floor's seal will disappear completely in a year at most. At that time you can bid farewell to this beautiful world. Yishen bowed deeply to the front, Senior, please teach me the cultivation method that doesn't require a dantian. The mysterious woman fell silent for a moment before she said, my sword cultivation method is very different from ordinary sword cultivation methods, and the difficulty is also very different. Cultivating it might be worse than death. You'd better think it through. Yishen laughed self-deprecatingly, Now that my dantian is shattered, there's no other way, right? The mysterious woman said, That's true. However, I still have to tell you about this cultivation method. You don't have a dantian, so my method is suitable for you. Because my method requires a sword as a dantian. Yi Xian was stunned. Using a sword as a dantian? That's possible? The mysterious woman said, Of course it's possible. If you use a sword as a dantian, then your path isn't the martial Dao but the sword Dao. If you use a sword as a dantian, then the better the sword, the better your dantian will be. Moreover, if others cultivate qi while you cultivate the sword, then you don't have to meditate and absorb spirit energy when you cultivate in the future. All you have to do is find a good sword to absorb, and the better the sword, the faster your cultivation will improve. If you cultivate to the initial stage, then your body will be a sword body. At that time you'll be immune to ordinary swords. Not only will you be immune, but you'll be able to make all swords submit as soon as you appear. All swords submit. Yi Xian's blood boiled when he heard this and he couldn't wait any longer. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman said, Did you see those 3 swords at the top of the pagoda before you entered? Yi Xian nodded, I did. The mysterious woman said, Those 3 swords represent the 3 extreme sword Daos of the heavens and the earth. If you're able to absorb them into your body and use them as your dantian, then your strength will attain an unprecedented height. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, I see that those 3 swords seem to be suppressing this pagoda. If I absorb them, will there be any problems? How could there be? The mysterious woman replied very quickly, Nothing will happen. Trust me, I'll protect you. Yi Xian was a little doubtful, but he knew that he had no other choice but to trust her. The mysterious woman said, Do you see the sword in front of you? Yi Xian looked at the sword in front of him that was stabbed into the ground next to the skeleton. The sword was more than a meter long and a finger wide. It was silver in color and looked very pleasing to the eye. And on the body of the sword, 2 small words were carved. Spirit Cloud. Spirit Cloud Sword. The mysterious woman said, This sword has been imprisoned for 1,200 years, and its spiritual energy has almost disappeared by 90%. It's just right for you to use now. I'll teach you a cultivation method, and you can absorb this sword into your body according to the method. You're now at the peak of the rank 5 Undying Realm, and if you succeed, you should be able to reach the rank 6 Qi Change Realm. Yi Xian sensed the meaning in the mysterious woman's words and immediately asked, Will it still fail? The mysterious woman said, It might fail. Yi Xian was stunned. Senior, don't tell me that no one has used this cultivation method before. The mysterious woman was silent for a moment and then she said, Indeed, no one has used it before. You're the first. If you succeed, congratulations, you'll be the first in history. Yi Xian's expression froze. After a moment, he smiled bitterly. Senior, what will happen if I fail? The mysterious woman said, If the sword breaks my body, maybe I'll die. Yi Xian was speechless. The mysterious woman said, Your dantian is shattered, and you're already in a state worse than death. What's the point of thinking so much? Just give it your all. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned serious. Right, his dantian was shattered, and he was in a hopeless situation. If he didn't give it his all, not only would he have no hope, even his sister Yiling would die. He had to give it his all. Yi Xian nodded, Come. As soon as he spoke, a strand of white light suddenly entered the space between his eyebrows and soon, a stream of information surged into his mind like a tide. Invincible sword body technique. Use your body as a sword, use the sword as your dantian, use your dantian to swallow all the swords in the world, use all the swords in the world to nourish your body, grow and multiply. After a moment, a strand of white light suddenly fell on the sword in front of Yi Xian. The sword trembled slightly, and then it transformed into a sword light that directly entered Yi Xian's body. Ah! In an instant, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly opened wide, and his entire face twisted. Bang! It was simply unbearable pain. At that moment, Yi Xian felt as if his entire body was being cut inch by blades. At that moment, the mysterious woman's voice rang out in Yi Xian's mind, The sword has entered your body, and you must endure the pain it brings. If you can't endure it, you won't be able to use the sword as your dantian. Not only that, you might even die. Yi Xian gritted his teeth, and his entire body trembled violently. It was either succeed or die. As time passed, Yi Xian's face twisted into a grimace. Not only that, but his entire body would also twitch from time to time. Many times he was in so much pain that he wanted to faint, but he knew very well that once he fainted, he might never wake up again. I have to endure it. Just like that, Yi Xian endured it. After about a day, A soft sword hum suddenly sounded out in Yi Xian's body, and in an instant Yi Xian's entire body collapsed. At the same time, a stream of air suddenly spread out from his body. Qi changed state. And in the original position of Yi Xian's dantian, there was a small sword floating there. And in the tower, a soft voice suddenly sounded out. I didn't think it would really work. Chapter 3. After some time Yi Xian's eyes slowly opened. As if he felt something, he sat up abruptly and said in disbelief, I've reached the Qi change state? The Qi change state. Because at this moment he felt the flow of Qi in his body. No, it wasn't Qi, it was sword Qi. Not only that, he also felt a small silver sword floating in his dantian. At this time, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly sounded, You've reached the Qi change state. He had indeed reached the Qi change state. Yi Xian clenched his fists, his whole body trembling slightly. It wasn't anger, it was excitement. At this moment, he felt like he had suddenly seen a ray of light in a pitch-black abyss. How could he not be excited when he saw hope in a hopeless situation? Most importantly, he had a chance to reach the Qi control state and bring his sister to the imperial capital's Kuraki Academy to seek treatment. What are you so excited about? The mysterious woman suddenly said, It's just the beginning. Yi Xian smiled sheepishly, I've embarrassed myself in front of you, senior. The mysterious woman said, Using the sword as your dantian makes up for your flaw of not having a dantian, but there are some drawbacks. Swords are divided into common sword, spiritual sword, bright sword, true sword, heavenly sword, Tao sword, and immortal sword. The sword in your body used to be a real sword, but after 1200 years of erosion, its original truth has dissipated. Not only has its truth dissipated, but even its heart of the sword has also disappeared. It is now only a spiritual sword. At this point, the mysterious woman paused, then continued, A sword's spirit will disappear one day. Once it disappears, the sword will shatter, and the first to die will be you. Yi Xian's expression froze. The mysterious woman said, You have two ways to solve this. The first is to constantly find new spiritual swords to devour. After devouring, the sword's spiritual qi will not only strengthen you, but also replenish the spiritual qi of the sword in your body. The second is to find new swords to replace the sword in your body. The better the sword, the better your dantian, and the better the dantian, the more powerful you will be. Of course, you are also a poor man, I'm afraid you don't even have a common sword. Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something and quickly said, Aren't there 3 swords at the top of the pagoda? What grade are those 3 swords? The mysterious woman said calmly, No rank. Yi Xian was speechless. The mysterious woman continued, Kid, I advise you not to let your imagination run wild. If it weren't for the existence of these 3 swords, your world would have long since perished. You don't have to worry about the sword. The sword in your body should be able to last for about a year. Your top priority now is to practice the sword. Sword practice. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, How do I do it? Murder. The mysterious woman said. Yi Xian was speechless. The mysterious woman said, The sword is a sharp weapon for killing. Only by killing will you be able to truly understand its beauty. Of course, you've just started, so what you need to train is speed and strength. Use the sword technique I taught you to summon the sword in your body. Yi Xian was stunned for a moment, then he slowly closed his eyes. Soon he opened his palm and a ray of sword light flashed in his palm. Following that, a sword floated in his palm. It was the silver Lingxiao sword in his body. Yi Xian was stunned. Senior, this sword can be summoned? The mysterious woman said, Yes, but it's best not to use this sword in a fight because if the sword is destroyed you're done for. You still lack an opponent, I'll find one for you. As the woman's voice fell, an illusory figure appeared in front of Yi Xian. The mysterious woman said, The figure in front of you is at the Qi Change realm, the same realm as you. Let's begin. As soon as the mysterious woman's voice fell, the illusory figure in front of Yi Xian disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian's pupils suddenly constricted. The opponent's speed was too fast. Relying on his instincts, he dodged to the side. However, the sword seemed to know that he was going to dodge, and at the moment he dodged, it suddenly changed its sword stance. Yi Xian's feet had just landed on the ground when the sword directly stabbed into his chest. Blood flowed out. Yi Xian was stunned, then said, Senior, aren't we supposed to practice swordsmanship? Why is it for real? Also, Senior didn't impart any sword techniques or moves to me. The mysterious woman's voice suddenly turned cold. Practice swordsmanship? A sword cultivator's most powerful killing move was never something that could be learned through practice, but rather through killing. The illusory figure in front of you is an enemy but also a teacher. If you're smart, he'll teach you all the basic sword techniques. Being injured is the best teacher, understand? As for sword techniques and moves, there's no rush. Building a good foundation is more important. Yi Xian pondered for a moment. In the end he nodded. I see. With that, his right foot slammed against the ground and his whole body rushed out. Inside the tower, Yi Xian's injuries increased, but the more he fought, the braver he became. Fight? Yi Xian was never afraid. He used to be the Yi residence's heir, and often represented the Yi residence in all kinds of life and death battles for the benefit of the Yi residence. This was also why he was able to resist the Great Elder with his endless realm. His realm wasn't nurtured but killed. Gradually Yi Xian began to learn some of the shadow sword techniques. Not only that, every time he was injured he would understand why he was injured and how he could not be injured again. Therefore, after 3 days of hard fighting, Yi Xian's injuries gradually began to decrease. Of course he did not learn any sword techniques, but he learned when to draw his sword, when not to draw his sword, when to block, when to dodge. However, this was all at the cost of blood. This kind of training, although cruel, was the most effective. Another 2 days passed. Now Yi Xian was already able to slowly counterattack. When he started to counterattack, he realized that the shadow in front of him was exceptionally good at defense. It was much better than his previous defense. To him, the shadow's defense was simply watertight. No matter how he attacked, the shadow could perfectly resolve it. Of course, to him this was a good thing because the shadow was equivalent to teaching him how to defend. Time passed bit by bit. Inside the tower, Yi Xian almost forgot to sleep and eat as he practiced with the shadow. During this time, his strength, speed, and reaction ability were much stronger than before. This discovery made Yi Xian ecstatic, and he cultivated even more crazily. Outside Yi residence, Yi Ku walked into the Great Elder's room. Yi Ku had an excited smile on his face. Great Elder, I have investigated what happened in Nanshan. Although the assassins we sent were unable to kill Yi Xian, the Li family survivors saw with their own eyes that Yi Xian's Dantian was destroyed. Hearing this, the Great Elder suddenly opened his eyes. Are you sure? Yi Ku nodded. Absolutely not. I personally went to ask the survivors. Yi Xian's Dantian was indeed destroyed. This is God's will to destroy Yi Xian, ha? In the room, the Great Elder laughed coldly. Dantian was destroyed. If a person did not have a Dantian, he would be a martial artist. Only with a Dantian could he be called a martial artist. Yi Xian's Dantian was destroyed. It could be said that he was a useless person. Even if he had a good combat ability, he only had brute force. Only by mastering Qi could he be considered a true powerhouse. After a moment, the Great Elder said coldly, Yi Ku, gather everyone to eliminate him, to eliminate future trouble. The Great Elder called Yi Ku shook his head. No. The Great Elder looked at Yi Ku. The latter said seriously, Great Elder, Yi Xian has contributed a lot to the Yi family. If we kill him now, it will disappoint many people in the Yi family. On top of that, Yi Lang has just become the heir, and he has a life and death agreement with him. If we kill him now, what will the outsiders think? They will definitely think that we did it. Not only outsiders, if this news gets out, I'm afraid that the Li family will also make a big deal out of this. The Great Elder frowned. Then what do you think we should do? Yi Ku smiled bitterly. Didn't Yi Lang have a life and death agreement with him? At that time, if Yi Lang kills him, it will be perfectly justifiable. No one will say anything. Yi Lang can also establish his power and become famous in Qing City. Not only that, even if the clan leader comes out, he can't say anything in the life and death arena, right? The Great Elder thought about it and nodded. That's fine. Anyway, his Dantian is broken, so he's no longer a threat. As he said this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. However, during this period we can't let him live too comfortably. Pass down my order. From now on, Yi Xian and his sister's monthly allowance and meals will be stopped. All privileges of the heir will be cancelled. He is not allowed to step into the Yi family's martial skill pavilion, and he is not allowed to leave the Yi mansion without permission. Also, his sister's medicinal diet will be stopped as well. His sister's cold illness has cost her a lot of medicinal pills and herbs. If it wasn't for the fact that he used to be useful, the old man would have kicked him out of the Yi mansion. Yi Ku smiled. Right now his Dantian is broken. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's a cripple. The Great Elder nodded. Yi Lang has just awakened. If he needs anything, the Yi family will do everything to satisfy him. Also, he can go to the martial skill pavilion at any time. He can watch everything there. Yi Ku nodded. Understood. Alright, that Yi Ling isn't young anymore. Why don't we betroth her to someone in the mansion? The great elder slowly closed his eyes. Do as you see fit. Inside the prison tower, Yi Xian lay on the ground, panting heavily. His entire body was covered in sword wounds. Fortunately, after reaching the Qi transformation realm, he could use spiritual energy to heal these scars. However, the pain was unavoidable. Although he had suffered some physical pain these past few days, he had gained much more. His battle prowess was already extraordinary. He was at the forefront of the younger generation in Qingqing. Now, after a few days of training, his battle prowess had risen to another level. How do you feel? The mysterious woman's voice suddenly rang out. Yi Xian grinned. I feel very good. The mysterious woman said, You've only just begun. The road ahead will be even more difficult. Of course, the path of Daoyi is like walking into the abyss. The path of the sword is even more difficult. You don't have a dantian, so you're not walking the normal path. In the future there will be many hardships. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. I'm not afraid of hardships. He had grown up in the Yi clan with his sister. What hadn't he suffered? He had no background, but he could become a prince by risking his life. Moreover, now that he had a chance to reach the Qi-controlling realm, there was hope for his sister's illness. Even if he had to suffer all the hardships in the world, he would be willing. After resting for a while, Yi Xian left the prison tower. He hadn't cultivated to the point of fasting, but he still needed to eat. Not long after Yi Xian returned to his room, Yi Ling walked in. Yi Ling walked to Yi Xian. She lowered her head and handed 2 steamed buns to Yi Xian. Brother, eat. Yi Xian frowned. What's wrong? Raise your head. Yi Ling raised her head. Yi Xian's expression changed. On the right side of Yi Ling's face, there was a red handprint. What happened? Yi Xian's eyes turned cold. Yi Ling shook her head. No, I accidentally touched it. Yi Xian pulled Yi Ling in front of him. To tell you the truth, I'm not dead yet. I'll call the shots for you. Yi Ling's tears gushed out. She wiped the tears on her face. Brother, the kitchen didn't send us any food today, so I went to the kitchen myself. That steward Wang from the kitchen brought me some dog food. How could I eat that food? It was already soaked and there were maggots. I couldn't take it anymore, so I went to reason with him. He said that you're no longer a prince and we only deserve to eat dog food. Then he said if I want food I have to sleep with him for a night. I scolded him and he hit me. Yi Xian's face was cold. He clenched his right hand so tightly that his nails pierced into his palm. Once you lose power, you're no better than a dog. After saying that, he pulled Yi Ling's hand out of the room and went straight to the kitchen. P.S. We meet again. I love you. Do you love me too? From tomorrow onwards, the update time will be the same as before 9. Chapter 4. Along the way, as Yi Xian and Yi Ling hurried past, people pointed at them and gossiped about them. When Yi Xian was the crown prince, everyone in the residence treated him with respect and took the initiative to greet him. However, he was no longer the crown prince. Those who used to suck up to him would either quickly avoid Yi Xian or pretend not to know him. After all, the crown prince of the Yi residence was now Yi Lang. No one wanted to offend Yi Lang and the great elder. To Yi Xian, he did not care about these things. Only when he was in dire straits would he be able to see through a person. Along the way, Yi Ling held Yi Xian's hand tightly and said in a trembling voice, Brother, why don't we just forget about it? I don't feel any pain. They have the great elder behind them. They will target me. Yi Xian stopped. He turned to look at Yi Ling and said fiercely, Whoever dares to hit you, even if it's the great elder, I will *CK them to death. As he said that, he pulled Yi Ling and walked away quickly. Soon Yi Xian and Yi Ling arrived at the Yi residence's kitchen. At this moment, a fat man walked out. This person was Steward Wang, who was in charge of the entire Yi residence's kitchen. Steward Wang glanced at Yi Xian and was slightly taken aback. Very quickly, a smile appeared on his plump face. Yo, what brings you here, prince? I'll look at my memory. I've forgotten that you're no longer the crown prince. Sigh, my memory is really bad. Alright, I should call you brother-in-law now. The great elder has betrothed your sister to me. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Steward Wang. Before Steward Wang could react, Yi Xian kicked Steward Wang's crotch. Steward Wang's eyes were wide open and his facial features were twisted in an instant. The surrounding people were dumbstruck. What was Yi Xian trying to do? Under the gazes of countless people, Yi Xian suddenly said fiercely, Ever since we were young, I've never been willing to hit my sister. How dare you fucking hit her? As he said that, he slapped Steward Wang's face. The sound of the slap was as loud as thunder. Steward Wang spat out a mouthful of blood essence and rolled on the ground. He clutched his crotch with both hands and wailed like a pig being slaughtered. Yi Xian was about to continue attacking when a furious shout suddenly came from behind him. Yi Xian, how dare you! The person who had come was Yi Ku. Behind Yi Ku were a few guards of the Yi mansion. Yi Xian paid no attention to Yi Ku. He stepped on Steward Wang's face, and then he turned to look at Yi Ling, who was terrified to the point his face was pale. Which hand did he hit you with? Yi Ling spoke in a trembling voice. His right hand. Brother, why don't we... Yi Ling hadn't finished speaking when Yi Xian suddenly pulled out the dagger on his waist, and then he suddenly slashed at Steward Wang's shoulder. Steward Wang's entire right arm was separated from his shoulder, and blood sprayed out like a fountain. The surroundings were perfectly silent. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. Even Yi Ku's eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief. As for Steward Wang, he'd even fainted on the spot. Yi Ling covered her mouth with her hand because she was terrified as well. Right at this moment, Yi Ku recovered from his shock, and he pointed angrily at Yi Xian. Yi Xian! How presumptuous of you! You actually dared to attack an old man in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and pointed his dagger at Yi Ku. In a fierce voice he said, Old dog, don't think that I don't know that you and the Great Elder are playing tricks behind the scenes. You bastards only know how to king plot against your own people. If you have the ability, go plot against the Zhang family, go plot against the Li family, go plot against the city lord's mansion. You're tough to your own people but weak like a dog when facing outsiders. That's how your group of elders is. The Zhang clan, the Li clan, and the city governor's estate were known as the four great powers of Pine City along with the Yi clan, and the Yi clan was the weakest. Yi Ku's expression was unsightly to the extreme when he heard this, and he spoke fiercely, Yi Xian, what are you acting so arrogantly for? You attacked an enemy in broad daylight and in front of everyone. What are you blabbering about? At this moment Yi Xian suddenly spoke angrily, I've already chopped him up, come and hit me. Yi Ku's face turned purple with rage and he roared furiously, take him down. However, the Yi estate's guards by his side didn't dare to move. Yi Xian had represented the Yi family in countless bloody battles. Among the guards of the Yi residence, his prestige was very high. This was because Yi Xian was the only one who dared to be unyielding when facing the other three forces. He was the only one who dared to fight whenever he wanted. Coupled with the fact that he frequently led some of the Yi estate's guards to fight for territory outside, it could be said that most of the Yi estate's guards had fought alongside Yi Xian. Yi Ku was stunned when he saw that the guards actually didn't dare to move, and then he said angrily, are all of you trying to rebel? The guard in the lead glanced at Yi Xian, and he was slightly hesitant. Brother Yi Yi Xian glanced at the guard, Li Mu, you and I have gone through at least 100 bloody battles. How I treat the Yi mansion, those of you who have fought with me outside know best. But now the Yi clan is feeding us with dog food and I can't take this lying down. I won't make things difficult for you and I know where you stand, but I'll say it here, if you fight today our brotherhood will be written off. You don't need to be merciful and I won't be merciful either. Hearing this, Li Mu's face suddenly became unsightly. The various powers in Qingqing often fought for territory, and every time they fought, it meant a bloody battle, and the older generation couldn't interfere. This was the rule because if the older generation made a move, it would mean that it was a war between clans. At that time, no one would benefit from it. Therefore, there was a rule to let the younger generation come out to fight, not only to prevent both sides from suffering losses, but also to train the younger generation. And Yi Xian was the Yi estate's representative. In other words, he could be said to be the leader of the Yi estate's younger generation. These guards had followed him through life and death countless times, so they naturally had a good relationship with him. At this moment, it was naturally extremely difficult for them to capture Yi Xian. Moreover, they were very clearly aware of Yi Xian's strength and character. Once he started fighting, he would definitely be a madman that didn't care about his own life. So long as they dared to make a move, then they would definitely die. When he saw that Li Mu and the others hadn't made a move, Yi Ku said ferociously, do all of you really want to die? Li Mu took a deep breath and was about to speak, but right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly said, he knows that all of you aren't a match for me, but he didn't make a move himself and asked all of you to make a move instead. It's none other than because he wants me to kill all of you and blow the matter up. As he spoke, a wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of his mouth. These elders of our Yi estate that live like princes are really amazing when it comes to scheming against their own people. Li Mu and the others' expressions instantly became unsightly when they heard this. Yi Ku was going to sacrifice them. Yi Ku stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, times are different from the past. If you had kept a low profile, then perhaps you would have been able to live for a few more days. Unfortunately, you can't see the situation clearly and are still so arrogant even at this time. Old dog. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly interrupted Yi Ku's words. When I said that I wanted to betroth my sister to this bastard, did you, old dog, notice? Yi Ku sneered. It was the old man's idea. What can you do about it? Yi Xian's expression became ferocious. Scheming against me is one thing, but my sister is only 12 years old. Old dog, you actually want to scheme against her? I'll fuck your ancestors. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly stomped his right foot. Bang. The bluestone floor beneath Yi Xian's feet directly exploded. At the same time, Yi Xian's entire body was like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey, and he rushed towards Yi Ku. Seeing this scene, Yi Ku's expression changed greatly. He didn't expect that Yi Xian would actually dare to attack him. He was an elder of the Yi residence. Did this Yi Xian really want a rebel? There was no time to think. Yi Ku's body was half squatting, his right hand clenched into a fist and pulled back. In the next moment he suddenly punched forward. Fist collapse. This was a low-level martial skill of the Yi residence, and its fist could collapse rocks. At this moment Yi Xian's fist arrived. What he used was also this low-grade martial skill. Bang. The two fists collided, and Yi Ku's expression instantly changed greatly. His right hand instantly split open and blood splattered. Yi Ku didn't even have time to react before Yi Xian suddenly pressed forward and fiercely punched his abdomen. Yi Ku spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body arched as he flew backwards. Yi Ku had just landed on the ground when Yi Xian's foot stepped on his chest. Yi Ku glared at Yi Xian. Impossible, why is your fist collapse so powerful? Although he was the Yi residence's internal affairs elder, and his strength wasn't particularly high, he was still in the Qi transformation realm. However, in front of this Yi Xian he was actually defeated with a single punch. Yi Xian fiercely slapped Yi Ku's face. You old dog, you always live like a prince in the Yi residence, and your fist collapse is as weak as a child's. Even I feel ashamed for you. Yi Ku angrily stared at Yi Xian. You dare hit me? Yi Xian slapped Yi Ku's face again. You are the one I want to slap. Yi Ku's entire face instantly swelled up. Ah! Being humiliated by Yi Xian in front of everyone, Yi Ku crazily howled, What are you waiting for? On the side, Li Mu and the others were a little hesitant. If they could win they might attack, but the problem was that they couldn't. Impudent. At this moment, suddenly an angry shout came from not far away. Everyone heard the voice and looked over. Not far away the Great Elder was hurrying over. Behind the Great Elder were the Yi residence's elders and guards. Yi Ling hurriedly walked to Yi Xian's side, her small hand tightly grasped the corner of Yi Xian's clothes, her voice trembling. Brother, you run quickly. Yi Xian grabbed Yi Ling's trembling hand and softly said, Don't be afraid. Yi Ling immediately burst into tears. It's my fault, brother. I dragged you down. I'm really useless. I'm sorry. Yi Xian grinned. Don't be afraid. Even if the sky collapses, I'll hold it up for you. As he spoke, he gazed at the Great Elder and chuckled, Grand Elder, let's make peace. I'll admit my mistakes and we'll let this matter go, all right? The Great Elder started laughing from rage. Make peace? Let it go? Yi Xian, are you daydreaming? You. Suddenly Yi Xian stomped his foot down on Yi Ku's throat. Crack. The sound of bones breaking resounded, and then Yi Ku's eyes opened wide with disbelief. It didn't take long for the color in Yi Ku's eyes to gradually vanish. Everyone here was stunned. Yi Xian gazed at the Grand Elder. Since you refuse to make peace, then let's fight one-on-one. Under the gazes of countless people, Yi Xian walked over to the Grand Elder. Grand Elder, a junior like me is challenging you. You wouldn't be afraid, right? Chapter 5. It was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. A challenge. Yi Xian had challenged the Grand Elder. Practically everyone in the Yi estate was stunned. In the Yi estate, the strongest person was naturally the patriarch who was in closed-door cultivation, followed by the guardian elder, Yi Qing. However, Yi Qing wasn't in the estate, so the Grand Elder was next. But now, Yi Xian had actually challenged the Grand Elder. Overestimating his ability? Some people thought so, but others felt that Yi Xian wasn't completely powerless. Yi Xian had once been fostered with the full strength of the Yi estate. Moreover, he wasn't like the Grand Elder who lived like a prince in the Yi estate all year round. He practically lived on the edge of a knife every single day. The Grand Elder didn't have such ferocity and courage. In the eyes of everyone in the Yi estate, even though Yi Xian was only at the rank 5 Endless Realm, he still had a chance of winning if he fought with his life on the line. In front of Yi Xian, the Grand Elder stared fixedly at Yi Xian. He hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually challenge him. Should he accept it or not? If he didn't accept it, then he would lose a huge amount of face. Moreover, his prestige in the Yi estate would be greatly reduced, and there would probably be people who wouldn't submit to him in the future. Except, he was slightly hesitant when he thought of Yi Xian's combat strength. Even though his cultivation was higher than Yi Xian's, he hadn't fought to the death with someone for many years. He'd only occasionally sparred with others in the Yi estate, but that was all within limits. But Yi Xian was different. Every time he fought in the outside world, it was a life-and-death battle. He knew very well what this meant. Moreover, even if he defeated Yi Xian, outsiders would only say that he was bullying the weak. But if he lost, then he would lose a huge amount of face. At that time, he wouldn't even be able to keep his position as an elder. The Grand Elder's expression was terrifyingly gloomy. It was originally Yi Xian's hopeless situation, but at this moment, Yi Xian had forced him into a hopeless situation. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded. "Don't we have an agreement in a month?" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw Yi Lang walking over slowly from afar. Yi Lang, the current heir of the Yi mansion. Just as the Grand Elder was about to speak, his eyes suddenly widened in disbelief. "Yi Lang, you've already reached the Qi transformation realm? Qi change stage." Everyone present was stunned. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Lang nodded slightly. "I'm not that talented. Took me 10 days to reach the Qi change realm. That's too slow." All the spectators gasped when they heard this. How is that slow? Before Yi Lang had awakened, Yi Lang had only been in the 4th stage dual cultivation realm. However, in the short span of 10 days, Yi Lang had reached the Qi change realm. This cultivation speed could be said to be unprecedented in the Yi clan. Hearing Yi Lang's words, the Great Elder suddenly burst into laughter. "God bless our Yi family, ha!" In the Yi mansion, everyone was overjoyed. With Yi Lang's cultivation speed, the Yi family would definitely become one of the great clans of the world in the future. Yi Lang's gaze fell on Yi Xian. He smiled and said, "What right do you have to challenge the Great Elder? Only by defeating me will you have the right to challenge the Great Elder. There are less than 20 days left until our agreement of life and death, right?" Yi Xian glanced at Yi Lang and smiled. "Look at me, I almost forgot." As he spoke, he looked at the Great Elder and said, "Great Elder, I've offended you just now. I'll come and challenge the Great Elder after I'm done with my duel with your grandson. Farewell." As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled Yi Ling and turned to leave. "Wait." At this moment, the Great Elder suddenly said angrily, "You killed an elder, don't tell me this matter." Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at the Great Elder and said, "Great Elder, why don't we fight one-on-one now? Or should I say your grandson can have a life-and-death duel with me now? Or is it that you and your grandson are afraid so you sent Yi Ku to deliberately mess with me and then find an excuse to kill me? If that's the case, the Great Elder doesn't have to waste so much effort. You can just come at me together and I, Yi Xian, will definitely not be able to defeat you." The Great Elder was so angry that his face turned ashen. At this moment, Yi Lang glanced coldly at Yi Xian and said, "Leave. I'll see you in the life and death arena in 20 days. Yi Xian shrugged and said, "Great Elder, your grandson is still the sensible one. The older you get, the more muddled you become." As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled Yi Ling and turned to leave. The Great Elder was so angry that his face turned purple. As if he thought of something, he suddenly looked at Li Mu and the others and said angrily, "I've raised you bunch of good-for-nothings. Seeing that the elder is being beaten, you actually don't want to help. Guards, drag him out and beat him to death." Hearing this, the faces of Li Mu and the others instantly turned pale. At this moment, Yi Xian, who was not far away, suddenly stopped. He turned to look at the Great Elder. "Great Elder, let me give you a friendly reminder. Li Mu and the others are the personal guards of the clan leader. Although you are the Great Elder, the clan leader is not dead yet. If you touch his personal guards, At this point, he pretended to be shocked and said, "Could it be that Great Elder wants to make a move against the Patriarch? You impudent!" The Great Elder roared angrily, "Yi Xian, if you say another word, this old man will kill you even if I have to put my life on the line today." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Calm down, Great Elder. I'm just giving you a reminder. Don't get angry and harm your body. Otherwise I'll be too happy, oh no, too sad." As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled Yi Ling and turned to leave. Li Mu and the others glanced at Yi Xian with eyes full of gratitude. If it weren't for Yi Xian's words, they would probably be dead today. In the same place, the great elder was so angry that his body was trembling. The people around him didn't dare to speak at all. As if thinking of something, the great elder suddenly looked at Yi Lang and said, "Why didn't you have a life-and-death fight with him just now? Why did you have to drag it out until 20 days later?" Yi Lang glanced at the great elder and said indifferently, "Because I'm about to break through to the chi-controlling realm." Hearing this, the great elder was stunned. The next moment he said excitedly, "Really?" Yi Lang nodded slightly and said, "The breakthrough is imminent. Otherwise I would have killed him just now. Now is not the time to make a move. I can't let an ant-like existence ruin my breakthrough." The great elder hurriedly nodded and said, Exactly. We'll let Yi Xian live for a few more days. Anyway, he's already a good-for-nothing." Yi Lang nodded slightly and said, "He's cornered now. Don't provoke him during this period. Otherwise, others will say that I, Yi Lang, am afraid of him and deliberately asked you to make trouble for him so that I can find an excuse to kill him." The great elder said in a deep voice, "This time I didn't think it through. Don't worry, I won't ask anyone to make trouble for him during these 20 days. Yi Lang nodded and said, "By the way, I may need a lot of spirit stones for my cultivation this time." The great elder was a little embarrassed. Spirit stones were precious crystals that contained spiritual qi. Even the Yi family didn't have much. Not only that, spirit stones were generally only used by the patriarch and the crown prince. However, Yi Xian hadn't used spirit stones before. This was naturally because they were holding him back. "Is there a problem?" Yi Lang asked. The great elder shook his head and said, "No problem, but I may not have enough spirit stones." Yi Lang said with a smile, "Don't worry. It's just that he's only in the chi-controlling realm. He won't need many spirit stones." Hearing this, the great elder immediately breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That's good." Yi Lang looked up at the sky with a hint of sarcasm at the corner of his mouth. He said softly in his heart, "What a remote and desolate place. But I can still make use of it for the time being." Yi Xian took Yi Ling back to his courtyard. As soon as they returned to the courtyard, Li Mu and the others rushed over. Yi Xian glanced at Li Mu and the others and said, "It's not good for you to come here at this time." Since his crown prince was disabled, almost all the brothers who had fought bloody battles with him had disappeared. Because those people knew very well that the future master of the Yi family would not be him, Yi Xian, but Yi Lang. Li Mu cupped his fists at Yi Xian and said, "Brother Yi, thank you for what you did before." Yi Xian nodded slightly and said, "I thank you for not doing anything. Go back. If the great elder's people saw you, you will have a lot of trouble." Li Mu hesitated and then said, "Brother Yi, if there's any need in the future, please let us know. We brothers will not refuse." After saying this, he turned around and left with several guards. Yi Xian shook his head slightly. Seeing Yi Xian shake his head, Yi Ling held Yi Xian's arm and said softly, "Brother, you don't believe them?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "If I'm strong, what they said just now is true. If I'm weak, there's no chance for me to make a comeback, so everything is fake." Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian and said very seriously, "I'm real. I'll always be on your side, brother." Yi Xian laughed and pulled Yi Ling into his courtyard. As soon as they entered the courtyard, Yi Ling's body trembled violently. Not only that, but her body also emitted a cold aura. Yi Xian was shocked. He hurriedly carried Yi Ling to the bed, took out a white jade bottle and poured out a white pill for Yi Ling to take. After Yi Ling took the pill, her complexion improved slightly. Yi Ling slowly opened her eyes. She held Yi Xian's hand tightly with her right hand and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "Brother, I feel that I may not live for long. For example, if I die, can you take my ashes with you? I want to be with you forever, you." "Don't talk nonsense," Yi Xian suddenly shouted. He glared at Yi Ling, "You won't die. Brother will never let you die. Believe brother, brother will definitely cure you. When brother reaches the chi-controlling realm, brother will take you to the imperial capital, okay?" As he said, his voice gradually softened, "Brother only has you as a relative. Even if it's for brother, you have to live well, okay?" Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian and her tears flowed down. Yi Xian gently wiped away the tears on Yi Ling's face. "Don't cry. If you cry, you won't look good. You still have to marry someone in the future." Yi Ling shook her head. "I won't marry. I only love brother." Yi Xian said with a smile, "You're an idiot. Come, brother will tell you a story. Once upon a time there was a mountain and there was a temple on the mountain." A quarter of an hour later, Yi Ling fell asleep. Looking at Yi Ling on the bed, Yi Xian's face was as gloomy as water. This was because Yi Ling had been sleeping longer and longer recently. Furthermore, there were only less than 3 pills left in his jade bottle. A moment later Yi Xian put away the jade bottle. He gently covered Yi Ling's mouth and then entered the prison pagoda. Cultivate. What Yi Xian needed to do now was to frantically improve his strength and reach the qi-controlling realm as soon as possible. Then he would take Yi Ling to the imperial capital. In addition, the Yi residents had already decided to kill him. If he lost the death match in 20 days, not only would he die, but his sister Yi Ling would also die. Yi Xian was about to find the shadow to practice with. At this moment, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly sounded, "You can cultivate the hidden realm." Yi Xian was stunned. Hidden realm? What hidden realm? The mysterious woman said, "The physical body realm is divided into the 1st to the 6th grade. But many people don't know that after the 6th grade, there is another realm, the golden body realm. After the golden body realm is the innate qi controlling realm." Yi Xian frowned slightly. Golden body realm? Senior, why haven't I heard of it? The mysterious woman said indifferently, "I already said it is a hidden realm. Ordinary people don't know. If you reach the golden body realm, your overall strength will at least double. Do you want to cultivate? If you don't, you can find a spiritual sword in the future and skip this realm and directly enter the innate qi controlling realm." Yi Xian said excitedly, "Double my strength? Really?" The mysterious woman said, "Of course." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Yes, I will cultivate." The mysterious woman said, "You already have sword qi in your body. Although you can't transfer this qi outside, you can use it to stimulate the meridians and organs in your body. Before, you cultivated the physical body from the outside. Now, you will cultivate the physical body from the inside. Only by cultivating both inside and outside can you achieve perfection. However, it will be a little painful." Yi Xian waved his hand and said heroically, "A little pain, it's nothing. I'll start." The mysterious woman said, "Good, it's very simple. Just activate the sword qi and let it automatically disperse in your body." Yi Xian immediately did so, and as soon as he sat down, his eyes suddenly opened. Ah! At this moment Yi Xian felt like his body was being pierced by tens of thousands of needles, and he almost fainted. "Senior, this is not a little pain. Is it very painful? I thought it was only a little." "Senior, don't tell me no one has cultivated this hidden realm. A long time ago there was someone who cultivated it, but at that time he died immediately. I thought it was because of some other reason. Seeing you in so much pain and I can't help you with anything, I can only use a smile to express my guilt. Yi Xian. P.S. The new book needs everyone's support, please bookmark it. If you have red tickets, please vote for it, thank you. Also, friends who want a cameo, please leave a comment in the book review section, I will seriously read it." Chapter 6. Bang. Unbearable pain. For the first time in his life, Yi Xian wanted to die. In the past he only felt physical pain. But this time he felt as if his internal organs and meridians were being torn apart. He had never experienced this kind of pain before. Endure. Yi Xian clenched his teeth as his body trembled uncontrollably. He really wanted to faint, but he was very clear that he couldn't. Once he fainted he would never wake up again. If he did not wake up, what would happen to his sister? She was only 12 years old. Would the Yi residents treat her well? At this point Yi Xian suddenly threw his head back and roared. He clenched his fists and his face was filled with madness. "Come on, hurt a little more. Haha, I can endure it. It really hurts, please be gentle." Time passed bit by bit. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian suddenly slumped to the ground like a pile of mud. After he fell to the ground, his body began to convulse as if he was having an epileptic fit. This convulsion lasted for about 15 minutes before it stopped. By now, his entire body was drenched in sweat. Yi Xian lay on the ground. He did not even have the strength to move. At this time, outside the pagoda, in the sky above the Yi residence, countless clouds suddenly gathered. Very quickly, the sky above the Yi residence began to rain. However, the sun was shining brightly everywhere else. Not only that, in the sky above the Yi residence, a rainbow quietly appeared. After the first rainbow appeared, a second rainbow also appeared. However, just as the third rainbow was about to appear, the pagoda inside Yi Xian's body suddenly trembled and the third rainbow quietly disappeared. A natural phenomenon. The entire city of Qing was shaken. In this world, there are some geniuses who will cause natural phenomena when they have a breakthrough or epiphany. These are usually only legends. But now the city of Qing has appeared. At this moment, all eyes in the city of Qing were focused on the sky above the Yi residence. Inside the Yi residence, the great elder led the other elders and family members to the courtyard and slowly knelt down. The great elder bowed respectfully towards the sky and said emotionally, "Thank the heavens for blessing the Yi family and blessing Yi Lang." Countless members of the Yi family knelt down. At this moment, the entire Yi residence was in jubilation. City Lord Residence. An old man looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky above the Yi mansion with an ugly expression. "Well done, Yi Lang. He actually caused a strange phenomenon in the sky." Someone summoned the Zhang family master and the Li family master to the mansion for a chat. Within Qingqing, countless messenger pigeons suddenly took off, and then they flew off in all directions. It was a truly magnificent scene. The fact that the Yi clan had a Heaven's Chosen One was no secret. Heaven's Chosen One was very rare, but a monster that could cause a natural phenomenon was even rarer. Everyone in Qing City knew that the Yi family was going to rise. Their rise was not limited to Qingqing, but the entire Jiang country and even the entire Qingzhou province. At this moment, almost everyone in the Yi mansion was in an uproar. The great elder even generously rewarded everyone in the Yi mansion with a monthly allowance. Not only that, but he also directly appointed Yi Lang as the young master instead of the clan leader. There was a difference between a crown prince and a young master. A crown prince was only a crown prince, and he represented the younger generation of the Yi mansion. As for the young master, it meant that he was the true second-in-command of the Yi mansion. Although he had overstepped his authority, the great elder did not care at all. That was because the current Yi Lang would definitely become a dragon among men in the future. So what if he was the clan leader? In the future, the entire Yi mansion would have to rely on Yi Lang's whims. In a certain courtyard, Yi Lang raised his head and looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky with a frown. He had indeed broken through. He had broken through from the 6th grade Qi change realm to the Qi controlling realm. However, he had broken through 2 hours ago, and this strange phenomenon had only just appeared. Therefore, he was not very sure if this strange phenomenon was caused by him. After a while, Yi Lang smiled coldly. "If it wasn't for me, who else would have the ability to cause this strange phenomenon? It seems that in this life I, Yi Lang, will also occupy a spot on the monster ranking." After saying that, he turned around and left. The pagoda of confinement. Yi Xian lay on the ground for an unknown period of time. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly resounded, "Get up and take a look at your body." Yi Xian got to his feet slowly. He looked at his body and was instantly stunned. Because there was a faint layer of golden luster on his skin at the moment. "What's this?" Yi Xian gazed at the surroundings with a puzzled expression. The mysterious woman said, "The golden body realm means to cultivate the body to the golden body realm. The body is the foundation, and the physical body realm is to establish a foundation. The strength of your foundation determines how far you'll be able to go in the future. Ordinary people only cultivate the external and neglect the internal. Actually, it's the exact opposite. The internal is the most important. Only when the internal organs and tendons are sufficiently strong can they endure the destruction of external forces. Even though you've suffered inhumane pain, you'll obtain great benefits in the future. Not only will you suffer in the future, but the benefits you've obtained now are sufficient." Yi Xian took a deep breath and then he slowly clenched his fists. At this moment he felt a strand of surging energy surge through his entire body. Yi Xian was overjoyed when he sensed this. Just as the mysterious woman had said, his current strength was at least 2 times stronger than it was before this. Moreover, the hardness of his current body couldn't be compared to before this. It could be said that he didn't feel any pressure at all in a one-on-one battle with a Qi-controlling realm expert like the Grand Elder who lived like a prince. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Senior, my younger sister suffers from typhoid. Do you have a way to cure her?" The mysterious woman fell silent for a moment before she said, "It's that little girl, right?" Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. She said, "I naturally have a way to deal with it. However, she can't enter the pagoda." What? Yi Xian was puzzled. She said, "The pagoda spirit of this pagoda has fallen into deep slumber. Even though it has acknowledged you as its master, you don't possess a single Tao law, so it's utterly impossible for you to bring anyone into this pagoda. If you forcefully bring someone in, then the pagoda will instinctively eliminate that person that it doesn't acknowledge." Yi Xian's face instantly fell when he heard this. "Looks like I have no choice but to take my younger sister to the imperial capital to seek treatment." Now, he had a problem, and it was that he had to find a spirit sword to devour in order to attain the Qi-controlling realm. However, how precious were spirit swords? Not to mention the Yi clan, even the entire city probably didn't have a single spirit sword. Only the imperial capital, the most prosperous place in the kingdom of Jiang, could possess a spirit sword. The imperial capital. Yi Xian said softly, looks like I have no choice but to go to the imperial capital. After he cultivated his sword technique for a while, Yi Xian left the pagoda of purgatory. After Yi Xian left, a mutter suddenly resounded. That little girl. She's a little strange. Yi Xian returned to his room. Meanwhile, Yi Ling walked in and the little girl was slightly depressed. Yi Xian smiled and said, "What's wrong?" Yi Ling walked over to Yi Xian and said softly, "Big brother, that Yi Lang caused a phenomenon of the heavens and the earth, and the entire clan is cheering. Moreover, Yi Lang has been conferred the title of Junior Patriarch by the Grand Elder. In the future he'll be the patriarch of our Yi clan." A phenomenon of the heavens and the earth? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He'd heard of it as well. According to legend, some extraordinary monstrous geniuses were able to cause phenomena of the heavens and the earth when they broke through. However, this had always been a legend, and at any rate, such a monstrous genius had never appeared in the city. He'd never imagined that Yi Lang would actually cause a phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. This meant that he really was a monstrous genius. At this moment, Yi Ling suddenly snorted coldly, "What phenomenon of the heavens and the earth? In any case, my brother is the most powerful." Yi Xian smiled faintly, "Don't worry. My life and death duel with him will take another 10 days. After 10 days my brother and I will leave the Yi mansion." Leave the Yi mansion? Yi Ling was slightly startled and then she asked, Then will we still come back?" "Come back?" Yi Xian fell silent. He and his sister Yi Ling grew up here and indeed they treated this place as their home. However, after this incident, he realized that he and his sister had no place in the hearts of the Yi clan's elders. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still of some use, he and his sister would have died a long time ago. But now, when the Yi family found someone better than him, they immediately abandoned him. In the past, he'd thought that if he were to die one day, the Yi clan would definitely treat Yi Ling well on account of him risking his life for the Yi clan. But now, it seemed that if he were to die, his sister's fate would be very, very tragic. Thinking of this, he shook his head and smiled. He gently rubbed Yi Ling's little head. "Do you like it here?" Yi Ling shook her head. "I used to like it because Big Brother is here but now I don't. The clan is too unfair to Big Brother. Big Brother has sacrificed so much for the clan, but the clan treats him this way. The Great Elder and the others are too unfair. And those elders in the clan, not a single one of them spoke up for Big Brother. They're too bad." Yi Xian smiled faintly. "Don't worry, the world is big. As long as we brother and sister are together, no matter where we go, it will be our home." Yi Ling smiled sweetly and then tightly hugged Yi Xian. "As long as I'm with Big Brother, I can go anywhere." Yi Xian laughed heartily. After playing with Yi Ling for a while, Yi Xian returned to the World Prison Pagoda. Cultivation. There were still 10 days until the life and death duel with Yi Lang. He naturally did not dare to slack off, especially now that Yi Lang had attracted the legendary heaven and earth phenomenon. Yi Lang opened his right hand. In his palm, a silver sword quietly appeared. Looking at the sword in his hand, Yi Lang said excitedly, "Senior, I can be considered a sword immortal now, right?" "Sword immortal?" The mysterious woman coldly snorted, "You're still 108,000 li away." Yi Lang was stunned, he did not understand. "Why?" The mysterious woman said, "Only those who have comprehended sword intent and grasped the truth of the sword Tao can be called a sword immortal. Right now you can't be called a sword immortal. You're not even a sword master. You can barely be considered a swordsman." Yi Lang blushed with shame. The mysterious woman said again, "What you need to do now is to become a qualified swordsman. Kid, don't blame me for not reminding you. There are many swordsmen in the world, but sword immortals are very rare. In your world it's already not bad to have 10 of them. As for the reason, you'll find out in the future. I can only tell you that the path of sword Dao Yi is very difficult." Yi Lang nodded. "No matter how difficult it is, I'll try my best to walk it." After the incident with the Yi family, he realized that it was absolutely impossible to rely on the Yi family to take care of his sister. He had to take care of his sister by himself. And to take care of his sister, the only way was to work hard and become stronger than he was now. This was because this world was very realistic. If you had no value, no one would even look at you. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and asked in a deep voice, "Senior, how can I become a qualified swordsman?" The mysterious woman said, "Cut off your hair with a sword." Yi Xian was slightly stunned. "Isn't that simple?" The mysterious woman sneered, "Why don't you try?" Yi Xian plucked out a strand of his hair and slashed with his sword. As the sword fell, that strand of hair was torn to pieces. Yi Xian was stunned. The hair was torn to pieces, but it wasn't cut off. At this time, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly rang out. You have strength, but you also have to learn how to control your strength. You also have to learn the angle of your sword, the speed, and the use of various aspects. Even the wind speed has to be taken into account. According to my estimation, you might have to cut off tens of thousands of strands of hair to be able to grasp these essences. Yi Xian took a deep breath. I have plenty of hair. As he said that, Yi Xian began to crazily slash. Outside the World Prison Pagoda, the Yi residence was already decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Almost all the famous people in Qingqing were invited to the Yi residence for a joyous gathering. Not only that, the current Yi residents often called themselves the #1 family in Qingqing. The current Yi family could be said to be like the sun in the sky. Even the city lord Manor, Li family, and Zhang family obediently came to celebrate. In the Yi residence's guest hall, the Grand Elder sat on a chair with his eyes closed. No one knew what he was waiting for. At this time an old man walked in. Grand Elder, the city lord, Li family head, and Zhang family head are here. The Grand Elder opened his eyes and said softly, Yiyu, go tell them that I am resting and can't see any guests for the time being. I will see them in half an hour. Yiyu was a little hesitant. Grand Elder, this? The Grand Elder slowly closed his eyes. Now, it's time to let them know who the true master of Qingqing is. Chapter 7. Outside the Yi residence. Yiyu cupped his fists towards an old man and two middle-aged men before him. City Governor Jiang, Patriarch Li, and Patriarch Zhang, I'm truly sorry, but the Grand Elder is currently resting and can't receive guests for now. However, the three of you can wait for an hour. The Grand Elder should be awake by then. Patriarch Liyu's eyes narrowed slightly. You want us to wait for an hour? Yiyu nodded slightly and smiled. Of course. If the three of you aren't willing to wait, feel free to leave. With that, he turned around and left. The current Yi clan really didn't need to care about the other clans anymore. Although the Yi clan's overall strength was inferior to the other three clans, everyone in the Yi clan firmly believed that in the near future, the Yi clan would be something that the other three clans could only look up to. The expressions of Li Yu and the other two instantly turned unsightly when they saw Yi Yu leave. Li Yu said coldly, the Yi clan's Grand Elder really puts on airs. City Governor Jiang Yan said indifferently, now that they have Yi Lang, they naturally don't need to take us seriously. The Zhang clan's patriarch Zhang Lai smiled. When one person achieves the Tao, his entire family ascends to the heavens. However, the Grand Elder's arrogance and lack of propriety isn't a good thing for the Yi clan. As he spoke, he looked at Li Yu and Jiang Yan. We were hesitating about joining forces earlier, but now it seems like we have no choice but to join forces. Jiang Yan and Li Yu glanced at each other, and then the three of them quickly nodded. Obviously, the Yi clan's attitude left them with no choice but to join forces. An hour later, the three of them entered the Yi clan's guest hall. The Grand Elder walked over and cupped his fists. I'm truly sorry. This old man has been sleeping too much lately and neglected the three of you. Please forgive me. Jiang Yan smiled. Don't mention it. The Grand Elder has been very busy lately. We understand, we understand. The Grand Elder laughed. Come, come. Please take a seat. Jiang Yan and the other two sat down. The Grand Elder glanced at the three of them and smiled. I presume the three of you came here together today for something? Li Yu smiled. We're naturally here to congratulate the Yi clan for obtaining a Heaven's Chosen One. This is a joyous occasion for our Qing city. Congratulations. The Great Elder smiled and said, Yi Lang has awakened and caused a phenomenon in the world. This is Heaven's blessing for our Yi clan. As he spoke, he picked up the teacup and took a sip before he smiled and said, Thank you for coming to congratulate Yi Lang. At this time the Li family's patriarch, Li Nian, stood up and cupped his fists. Great Elder, many unpleasant things have happened between my Li family and the Yi family. I hope the Yi family can forgive us. The patriarch of the Zhang clan, Zhang Lai, also stood up and cupped his hands together. Grand Elder, my Zhang clan has offended you in the past. I hope that the Yi clan can forgive us. The Zhang family and the Lin family were once the sworn enemies of the Yi family, especially the Zhang family. The last heir of the Yi family died in the hands of the Zhang family. But now the Zhang clan and the Li clan had no choice but to lower their heads, because the Yi clan had produced a Heaven's Chosen One. Moreover, it was a Heaven's Chosen One who could cause a phenomenon in the world. If they didn't lower their heads now, they might have to turn around in the future. The first elder took a sip of his tea and did not say anything. Along with the Grand Elder's silence, the atmosphere here instantly became heavy. Zhang Lai gazed at the nearby city governor, Jiang Yan. The latter grinned and said, Grand Elder, we're all members of Azure City, and Azure City is a tiny place. Conflicts can't be avoided since we frequently meet here. Presently, the Yi clan will definitely rise to prominence, and their opponents will definitely be some of the great clans of the world. What do you think? The Grand Elder grinned. Since Brother Jiang has spoken, then what else can I say? How about this? My Yi clan hasn't been having a good time lately. For the next 10 years, hand over the rights to mine the gold mines in the surroundings of Azure City to my Yi clan. What do you think? The expressions of everyone here instantly sank when they heard this, or it should be said that they were furious. Gold mines. What did these clans of Azure City rely on to survive? It was naturally the gold mines. Moreover, the source of conflict between these clans was the gold mines as well. Because there were a few mines in the surroundings of Azure City, and every time a mine was discovered, they would practically fight to the death. No one wanted to give up. Because the gold mines represented resources. Once a clan lost its resources, then its higher-ups wouldn't be able to cultivate, and its subordinates wouldn't be able to be fostered. If this continued, then annihilation was only a matter of time. Yet now, the Yi clan had asked for the rights to mine for 10 years. This meant that these clans of Azure City wouldn't be able to obtain any income for the next 10 years. Even though it wasn't to the extent of annihilation, they would probably have to live on grass for the next 10 years. The city governor, Jiang Yan, glanced at the Grand Elder, yet he didn't speak and just drank his tea with his head lowered. However, his eyes were icy cold. It wasn't just Jiang Yan, the expressions of the other two were unsightly to the extreme. Even though they'd been prepared to be taken advantage of before they came here. However, they hadn't expected that the Yi clan would take advantage of them so ruthlessly. The Grand Elder glanced at everyone here and smiled. Don't worry, Yi Lang will probably have become a member of that mountain in 10 years. At that time. The expressions of Jiang Yan and the others instantly changed when they heard this. A member of that mountain. He meant some sects that were outside of Azure City. The Grand Elder was clearly threatening them. Moreover, it was an undisguised threat. Once Yi Lang joined those sects, destroying them would really be as easy as snapping a finger. Thinking to this point, Jiang Yan and the others looked at each other. In the end, Jiang Yan stood up and cupped his fists. Since the Yi clan is in trouble, then the rights to mine the mines around Azure City for the next 10 years will belong to the Yi clan. The Grand Elder smiled and cupped his fists. Thank you very much. Jiang Yan nodded, then we'll take our leave. With that, the four of them turned around and left. At this moment, Yi Yu walked into the main hall and said in a deep voice, Grand Elder, we've offended all of them. Offended? The Grand Elder sneered. Why would the Yi clan be afraid of offending them now? Once Yi Lang becomes a member of that mountain, wouldn't it be a matter of minutes to destroy them? The Yi clan only wants the rights to mine for 10 years, and that's already extremely benevolent. With that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Outside the Yi residence. As soon as Jiang Yan and the other two left the Yi residence, their expressions instantly turned ferocious. They're going too far. Zhang Lai said fiercely, once the Yi clan gains power, they want to wipe us out. Liu said coldly, that Yi Lang is the heaven's chosen one that can cause a phenomenon. Now that the Yi clan has Yi Lang, not to mention us, even the city lord and the others don't care about them. Jiang Yan shook his head. Enough. For now we have no choice but to endure this. Let's return to our respective residences first and see what happens when the time comes. Don't be anxious, flowers don't bloom for 100 days. The Yi clan is so arrogant and domineering, there will come a day when they suffer. With that, they turned around and disappeared from the entrance of the Yi residence. With the compromise between the Li clan, Zhang clan, and the city lord's mansion, the entire Yi clan instantly became arrogant. In the past, the Yi clan could be said to be subservient to these clans. But now, because of Yi Lang, the entire Yi clan had confidence, full of confidence. Moreover, many disciples of the Yi clan already considered themselves to be the #1 family in Qingqing. Not only did the disciples of the Yi clan think so, even the elders thought so. And now, almost everyone held Yi Lang in the palm of their hands, and at this time many people thought of Yi Xian. Did you hear? That Yi Xian hasn't left his courtyard for a long time. Does he dare? In the current younger generation of Qingqing, who would brother Yi Lang be afraid of? No, in the entire younger generation of Jiang country, brother Yi Lang is one of the best. As for this Yi Xian, I'm afraid he's not even fit to carry brother Yi Lang's shoes. That's true. Sai, if he had kowtowed and admitted his mistake, he could have kept his life. Who cares if he lives or dies? Do you know how glorious our Yi clan's disciples are? Yesterday, I ran into a young master of the Zhang clan. I slapped him and he didn't even dare let out a fart. Haha, I ran into the heir of the Li clan at the Yichuan brothel yesterday. In the past he only had eyes for Yi Xian, but yesterday when I told him to scram, he didn't even dare let out a fart. How delightful. Isn't that so? Now the Yi clan has the final say in Qingqing. All of this was brought about by Brother Yi Lang. Come, let's go pay a visit to Brother Yi Lang. Inside the prison pagoda, Yi Xian wielded the heaven's edge sword, hacking and slashing. He trained like crazy. To Yi Xian, what he needed to do now was to become a swordsman. Having grown up with his sister, he knew the importance of strength. Especially after this experience, he understood even more. If a man lost power, he was no better than a dog. Even though he had done so much for the Yi clan had abandoned him just like that. A man could only rely on himself. Inside the pagoda, Yi Xian had lost count of how many times he had swung his sword. By now he could cut through hair with a single slash. It could be said that he was now a swordsman. But that wasn't good enough. Right now, he could only be considered an ordinary swordsman in terms of speed and strength. He was still a long way from becoming a master swordsman. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. Soon there were only 3 days left until their 1-month battle to the death. On this day Yi Xian left the world prison pagoda. As soon as he stepped out, he frowned. Because at this time, Yi Ling had come to deliver food. Did something happen? Yi Xian hurried to Yi Ling's room. At this time Yi Ling was lying on the bed, trembling. There was frost on her hair. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically at the sight of this. He hurriedly ran over and took out a white jade bottle. However, the white jade bottle was completely empty. There were no more medicinal pills. Yi Xian slapped himself. Damn it. I actually forgot that there were no more medicinal pills. Damn it all. As he spoke, he slapped himself again, and then he hurriedly rubbed Yi Ling's face. His voice trembled as he said, wait for brother. Brother will be right back. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged out of the room like a madman and headed straight for the Yi estate's pharmacy. Yi Xian has come out. When they saw Yi Xian, some of the Yi clan disciples instantly spread the news, and some busybodies even ran over to surround Yi Xian. If it was in the past, they would naturally not dare. But now, with the rise of Yi Lang, the disciples of the Yi clan actually didn't fear Yi Xian as they had in the past. On the way, a group of disciples from the Yi clan suddenly obstructed Yi Xian's path. The person in the lead was Yi Feng, and he was the Grand Elder's grandson and Yi Lang's cousin. Yi Feng sized up Yi Xian and smiled. Yi Xian, you've been hiding for so many days. Why have you suddenly come out here today? Yi Xian disregarded Yi Feng and the others as he walked towards the pharmacy. However, Yi Feng's figure flashed and obstructed Yi Xian's path again, and he smiled. Yi Xian, you seem to be in such a hurry. Could it be that your sickly younger sister is about to die? If that's the case, then I'll congratulate you in advance. After all, you'll have one less burden in the future. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pressed forward, and Yi Xian's fist smashed against Yi Feng's throat before he could even react. Crack. The sound of bones breaking resounded. Everyone here was petrified on the spot. As for Yi Feng, his eyes were wide open and his eyeballs were about to burst. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pulled out the dagger at his waist and aimed it at Yi Feng's throat. Yi Feng's head fell to the ground. Yi Xian sheathed the dagger, and he looked at the disciples of the Yi clan fiercely. If anyone dares to say anything bad about my sister, I'll make sure you have nothing to say for the rest of your life. P.S. The new book has just been released and I still need everyone's support. If you haven't bookmarked it, please bookmark it. If you have a monthly ticket, feel free to donate some as well. Chapter 8. The surroundings were perfectly silent. The eyes of all the disciples of the Yi clan were filled with astonishment and terror. Everyone in the Yi clan knew how much Yi Xian treasured his younger sister, and it could be said that Yi Xian was a crazy protector of his younger sister. However, they'd never imagined that Yi Xian would protect his younger sister to such an extent. Yi Feng was the Grand Elder's grandson, and he was Yi Lang's cousin brother. Yet Yi Xian had actually killed him just like that. Yi Xian didn't waste any more time with these disciples of the Yi clan, and he headed directly to the Yi estate's pharmacy. Meanwhile, an old man walked out from within. It was Elder Yi Qing who was in charge of the Yi estate's pharmacy. Yi Qing's brows instantly knit together when he saw Yi Xian. Yi Xian, what are you doing? Yi Xian walked over to the medicine cabinet and glanced at it. It didn't take long for his gaze to descend onto a certain compartment, and then he pulled it open. However, it was completely empty. Yi Xian's expression instantly turned cold when he saw this, and then he turned to look at Yi Qing. The spirit-nourishing pill. Yi Qing's eyes narrowed slightly. The old man has gone into hiding. Yi Xian, the clan has stopped supplying your younger sister with medicinal pills. You. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly tossed a fist-sized weight at Yi Qing. Yi Qing's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly dodged to the side to avoid the weight. Even though he dodged the weight, his expression had instantly changed drastically because Yi Xian had arrived in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly smashed his fist towards Yi Qing's head. Simple and direct. Yi Qing was horrified in his heart. He curled his right hand and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian as well. Their fists collided. Bang! A muffled explosion suddenly rang out. Yi Qing was knocked back by Yi Xian's punch. When he was pushed to the corner of the wall and had nowhere to retreat, Yi Xian appeared in front of him again. This time Yi Xian also threw a punch at his head. Yi Qing's pupils suddenly shrank. He hurriedly said, "I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you." Yi Xian's fist stopped a few inches away from Yi Qing's face. Yi Qing stared in shock at Yi Xian. He was a true Qi transformation realm expert. Although he did not often fight outside, according to what he knew, Yi Xian was only at the rank 5 unending realm. However, he had been defeated in one exchange. This Yi Xian's strength was too terrifying. Yi Xian extended his hand. Yi Qing's expression changed slightly. He did not dare to play any tricks. He hurriedly took out a white jade bottle and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian opened the white jade bottle. There were only 15 vitality pills inside. Yi Xian frowned. Yi Qing hurriedly said, "Yi Xian, these pills are extremely precious. Our Qingqing doesn't have them. We have to import them from outside. These are the leftovers from the last time we imported them." Yi Xian was silent for a moment. Finally he put away the white jade bottle and said, "I've risked my life for the family for so many years. It's not too much to accept these pills from the family, right?" Yi Qing glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian did not say anything else. He turned and left the house. However, outside, Grand Elder had already surrounded him with a group of elders. Grand Elder and the others were obviously aware that Yi Xian had killed someone in a fit of rage. Grand Elder stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "My grandson only said a few words to you and you want to kill him?" Yi Xian walked slowly to stand before Grand Elder. "If you don't teach your grandson a lesson, then I'll teach him a lesson for you." Grand Elder clenched his fist slowly. Yi Xian looked at Grand Elder with an expressionless face. However, his eyes were filled with killing intent. At this time, the Grand Elder suddenly said fiercely, "Kill him." It didn't take long for some of the Yi Estate's guards to charge at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's mouth curled into a ferocious smile. In the next moment, he tapped the ground lightly with the tip of his foot, and his figure slid forward. Before the others could see clearly, one of the Yi Estate's guards had flown over 10 m away. Yi Xian did not stop. He turned around, flew into the air, and swept a whip kick at the guard who had rushed in front of him. Bang! That guard was directly blasted flying by Yi Xian's kick. At this moment, Yi Xian dashed directly toward the first elder. The Grand Elder's expression instantly became ferocious when he witnessed this scene. He took a step forward and slapped his palm at Yi Xian. Yi Xian clenched his right fist tightly and smashed it at the Grand Elder. Bang! As soon as their fist and palm collided, the Grand Elder was blasted back by over 10 steps. However, Yi Xian hadn't taken a single step back. The Grand Elder gazed at Yi Xian with astonishment. "How could this be possible? Your dantian has been shattered, so how could you still possess such combat strength?" Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. "How did you know that my dantian has been shattered?" The Grand Elder stared fixedly at Yi Xian and remained silent. However, Yi Xian had an understanding. Obviously, it was the Grand Elder who definitely sent that mysterious fellow who'd launched a surprise attack against him. Killing intent surged explosively within Yi Xian's eyes when he thought up to hear. Suddenly, a voice resounded, "Yi Xian, leave." Everyone looked towards the source of the voice, and they saw that it was Yi Lang. Yi Xian glanced coldly at Yi Lang, and then he didn't waste his breath at all. He just turned around and left. The guards in the surroundings didn't stop him, and they gazed at Yi Lang instead. Next to Yi Lang, the first elder asked in confusion, "Yi Lang, even if you have a life and death pact with him, he killed your cousin this?" Yi Lang interrupted the Grand Elder, "Don't worry, I'll avenge you 2 days from now." The Grand Elder clenched his fists tightly while his face was livid, and he remained silent. Yi Lang smiled and said, "I know he's arrogant and deserves to be killed. However, now isn't the time. Notify everyone in the city to come watch the battle 2 days from now. I intend to fight him and make a name for myself." The Grand Elder frowned slightly when he heard this. "What do you mean?" Yilang smiled and said, "If I want to draw the attention of those powers from outside the city, then I have to make a name for myself. Yi Xian is the first person I want to trample on. Once I do that, I'll be able to make a name for myself in the city, and only then would I have a chance to draw the attention of those powers from outside the city." The Grand Elder's expression eased up slightly. "Right, all of those powers are supreme existences. If I don't make some noise, then it'll probably be difficult to draw their attention." Yilang nodded. "Don't worry, Grand Elder. I'll make him suffer humiliation in the arena 2 days from now so that you can vent the hatred in your heart." The Grand Elder nodded, and then he seemed to have thought of something and said with a serious expression, "Even though his dantian has shattered, his combat strength can't be underestimated. You can't be careless." Yilang glanced at the Grand Elder and smiled faintly. He did not say anything, but his heart was filled with disdain. He had seen how the Grand Elder was at a disadvantage when he was fighting against Yi Xian earlier. In his heart, it was not that Yi Xian was too strong, but the Grand Elder was too weak. A person who only knew how to live like a prince, even if he was a cultivator, as long as he had not reached a realm that could transcend the realm of the physical body, it would not be an exaggeration to call him an old man. In his heart, the Grand Elder was an old man. It was not just the Grand Elder, but the other elders of the Yi Mansion were the same. Yilang withdrew his thoughts and looked in the direction that Yi Xian had left in. He smiled coldly. "It's your honor to be able to become my stepping stone." When Yi Xian returned to his room, he quickly poured out a vitality pill and fed it to Yi Ling. Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling anxiously. At this moment he was really out of his wits. At the same time he blamed himself for forgetting about his sister's pill. Soon, under Yi Xian's anxious gaze, Yi Ling slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Yi Xian she smiled sweetly. "Brother, it's so good to see you." Yi Xian smiled and held Yi Ling's hand tightly. He asked gently, "Are you feeling better?" Yi Ling nodded. "I'm not that cold anymore." Yi Xian said softly, "It's all my fault. I promise you there won't be a next time." "Absolutely not." Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. Suddenly tears rolled down her cheeks. "Brother, I used to want to die because I didn't want to be a burden to you. But just now I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid that after I die you'll be all alone. I want to be with you forever." Tears welled up in Yi Xian's eyes. He smiled. "Ling will be fine. Both of us will be fine." Yi Ling wiped the tears off her face. "I will live well. I want to be with you forever." Yi Xian hooked his finger with Yi Ling's and smiled. "Then it's a promise. No one can die first." Yi Ling rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. "Brother, Pinky is for kids." Yi Xian laughed. "In my heart you'll always be a kid." A bright smile appeared on Yi Ling's face. Her heart was filled with sweetness. This time Yi Xian didn't cultivate immediately. Instead he went shopping with Yi Ling on his back. During this period of time she had been staying in the Yi Mansion and hadn't gone out to play. Yi Xian felt quite guilty about this. Now that he was free he naturally wanted to accompany his sister. In Yi Xian's heart, his sister was the most important. Qing City was a small city with a population of less than 200,000. Among the many cities in Jiang country, it was ranked at the bottom. Although there weren't many people, Qing City was still bustling with noise and excitement. There were all kinds of vendors. Yi Xian brought his sister out of the Yi Mansion. The Yi Mansion immediately sent some people to follow them from afar. Obviously they were afraid that Yi Xian would run away. The current Grand Elder naturally wouldn't let Yi Xian go. Yi Xian didn't care about the people following behind him. He allowed them to follow him as long as they didn't cause any trouble. "Brother, I can walk by myself." "Nonsense, you're so weak right now. How can you walk? Let me carry you for a while more." "Oh, okay." Yi Xian brought Yi Ling around more than half of Qing City. At dusk, the siblings were preparing to return to the Yi Mansion. However, just as they passed through the city gates, a woman galloped over at an extremely fast speed. The woman wore a spotless white robe and held a silver spear in her right hand. The tip of the spear was as bright as a cold star. The woman was extremely beautiful. She had an oval face and phoenix eyes. Her facial features were so exquisite that they were almost perfect. Yi Xian had never seen such a beautiful woman. This was a woman that one would never forget for the rest of their lives. As the woman entered the city, the eyes of everyone on both sides of the city gate fell on her. She was a beautiful scenery that people couldn't take their eyes off. As soon as the woman entered the city, she suddenly stopped beside Yi Xian and his sister. The woman's gaze fell on Yi Xian. She sized up Yi Xian. Suddenly, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. "Hiding your cultivation level." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. This woman actually knew how to hide her cultivation level? Most importantly, she was actually able to see through his hidden cultivation level. It must be known that up until now, even the Grand Elder and the others couldn't see through his cultivation level because it had been concealed by the mysterious woman. However, this woman was actually able to see through it. At this moment, the woman suddenly pointed her spear at Yi Xian. I think you're Yi Lang who caused the phenomenon. You're really not bad to be able to cultivate to a hidden cultivation level and have such a solid foundation. You're qualified for me to use my spear. My name is Enlancio. Come take my spear. Enlancio. At the side, someone exclaimed, Heavens! She's the peerless genius of our Jiang country, Enlancio. It's really her. She's that Enlancio who was personally conferred the title of Kingdom Scholar by the King of Jiang country. An 18-year-old Kingdom Scholar. Not to mention my Jiang country, even the previous dynasty has never seen one. Chapter 9. Enlancio. Yi Xian was also stunned. Because he had heard of this name before. It could be said that there was no one in the entire Jiang country who did not know of this Enlancio, because her reputation was simply too great. The #1 genius of the state of Jiang. She had reached the high sky realm above the Qi-controlling realm before the age of 18. Not only that, she was the youngest spear user in the history of the state of Jiang. But that was nothing. The most terrifying thing was that she had comprehended spear intent. What did that mean? It meant that there was a 99% chance that she would become a Spear Dao Grandmaster in the future. Such a genius had never appeared in the history of the state of Jiang in the past 500 years. Moreover, there were many records and legends about Enlancio. For example, she was the first student to be personally invited by the Dean of Kuraki Academy to join Kuraki Academy. She was the youngest state scholar of the state of Jiang. She was the fastest person to reach the high sky realm in the younger generation of the state of Jiang. What heaven's chosen one? What heavenly phenomenon? They were nothing in front of her. Yi Xian had never expected that she would come to this tiny Qingqing. On horseback, Enlancio pointed her spear at Yi Xian. There was no contempt or arrogance in her eyes. She was very calm. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and shook his head. You found the wrong person. Enlancio frowned. What do you mean? Yi Xian said, I'm not the Yi Lang who caused the heavenly phenomenon. He's in the Yi clan. You can go look for him. Enlancio raised her brows. You're not Yi Lang. Yi Xian nodded. At this moment, Yi Ling, who was beside Yi Xian, suddenly said, Big sister, my brother is also very powerful. Yi Xian smiled and rubbed Yi Ling's little head. The latter smiled sweetly and hugged Yi Xian's arm tightly. Enlancio sized up Yi Xian. I didn't expect that this tiny Qingqing would not only have a Yi Lang who can cause the heavenly phenomenon, but there's also someone like you who can cultivate to a concealed realm. I'm really surprised. Yi Xian smiled and said nothing. Enlancio said, It doesn't matter if you're Yi Lang or not, you still have the qualifications to receive a shot from me. Do you want to? Yi Xian was silent. Good. He had to be famous. Although he didn't care about his fame, he knew that it would definitely help him. However, the moment he accepted the challenge, his strength would be revealed. Now that he had exposed his strength, the Great Elder and the others might eliminate him at all costs. They might even make a move on his sister. But if he didn't accept it, it wouldn't be in line with his personality. How could one be a coward? As he thought up to here, Yi Xian raised his head to look at Enlancio. Can we fight in 2 days? 2 days? Enlancio shook her head slightly. Forgive me for speaking frankly, but you don't have the qualifications to make me wait for 2 days. After saying that, he prepared to ride away. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly took a wooden sword from a stall beside him. He plucked out a strand of his hair and swung it diagonally. The strand of hair was sliced into 2 without a sound. Enlancio stopped, and then her gaze descended onto Yi Xian once more while a wisp of surprise could be seen in her eyes. I actually failed to recognize you. Not only have you cultivated to the concealed realm, you're even a swordsman. Such a young swordsman is rare in my Jiang kingdom. Yi Xian looked Enlancio in the eyes and said, Let's fight in 2 days. All right? A wisp of a teasing smile arose on Enlancio's peerlessly beautiful face. This man said that he would fight her and not receive a shot from her. Enlancio sized up Yi Xian once more and then she said, Then I'll wait for 2 days. Now I'm going to meet Yi Lang. Do you know where the Yi estate is? Meanwhile, Yi Ling smiled and said, Big sister, we're from the Yi estate. Come back with us. Enlancio gazed at Yi Xian. You're the Yi estate's young master? Yi Xian nodded. You can be considered to be. Enlancio nodded slightly. Your Yi clan is really fortunate to be able to possess two geniuses. Looks like it isn't far from becoming a second-rate clan. Yi Xian smiled and didn't say anything. Just like that, the two of them led Enlancio back to the Yi estate. Enlancio's arrival shocked the entire Yi clan, and the Grand Elder personally led a group of elders to welcome her. Even though the Yi clan was arrogant and looked down on everyone, Enlancio was from the imperial capital. Moreover, the power behind her was something that even 100 Yi clans couldn't compare to. When the Grand Elder and the others found out that Enlancio had come to the Yi clan to challenge Yi Lang, they could be said to be overjoyed. Yi Xian's group of 3 had just arrived at the entrance of the Yi estate when the Grand Elder and the others came out to welcome them. The Grand Elder instantly frowned when he saw Yi Xian and Yi Xian. However, he paid no attention to them, and he hurriedly walked over to Enlancio and bowed slightly. "Missin, your presence truly brings light to my Yi clan. Missin, please come in and have a seat." Enlancio shook her head slightly. "There's no need for a seat. Is Yi Lang here?" The Grand Elder hurriedly said, "Yes, yes." As he spoke, he gazed at an elder at the side. "Quickly ask Yi Lang to come out." The elder hurriedly turned around and left. At this moment, the great elder looked at Yi Xian, and his face instantly turned cold. "Why are you embarrassing yourself here? Hurry up and get in." Enlancio's beautiful brows instantly knit together slightly when she heard this. Yi Xian glanced at the great elder. "None of your business." He and the great elder were now like fire and water, so he naturally wouldn't give the great elder any face. The Grand Elder's expression instantly turned gloomy, and he was just about to speak when Enlancio suddenly said, "This is?" The Grand Elder looked at Enlancio, and his expression softened. "Missin, there's something you don't know. This Yi Xian was originally the Yi clan's young prince. However, this person is arrogant and domineering. Moreover, his natural talent is mediocre, and he's utterly unable to bear the great responsibility of a young prince. Because of this, we stripped him of his young prince title. However, I never imagined that this person would actually harbor hatred in his heart and resent us. He wants to..." Right at this moment, Enlancio suddenly said, "You said that he's arrogant and domineering. I won't comment on that. But you said that his natural talent is mediocre?" The Grand Elder was slightly stunned, and then he said, "Of course. He's already 18, yet he's still at the unending realm. Such natural talent is naturally extremely poor." Enlancio's expression became slightly strange. "A swordsman. A concealed cultivation. This is considered poor natural talent?" Enlancio glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. At this moment, she clearly noticed that there seemed to be something off between the Yi clan and Yi Xian. Meanwhile, the Grand Elder said, "Missin, there's something you're unaware of. He can't bear to see Yi Lang as the young prince, so he actually dared to make a pact of life and death with Yi Lang in a month. Speaking of which, there are only 2 days left before the deadline. If Missin has no other matters to attend to, then you can stay in Pine City for 2 days. At that time, I hope Missin can bear witness to it." Enlancio glanced at the Grand Elder, and then she glanced at Yi Xian who stood at the side, and her expression was rather strange. Right at this moment, Yi Lang walked out. Yi Lang walked over to Enlancio, and then he cupped his fists towards her. "Missin." Enlancio's gaze descended onto Yi Lang, and it wasn't long before her brows knit together. "A person chosen by the heavens?" A person chosen by the heavens was someone who'd cultivated to a certain level and was about to reach the end of their lifespan before reincarnating. In the eyes of true geniuses, such people were extremely disdainful towards such people. Only a useless person would reincarnate and drag out an ignoble existence in the world. The reason she'd come to Pine City wasn't because Yi Lang was a person chosen by the heavens, and it was because someone here had drawn down a phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. Someone that was able to draw down a phenomenon of the heavens and the earth had aroused her slight interest. However, at this moment she was disappointed when she saw Yi Lang. Yi Lang had concealed his cultivation, but his cultivation was superficial, and it was simply like an illusion. Of course, it was extremely extraordinary, but it was truly nothing in her eyes. Comparatively speaking, she looked more favorably upon Yi Xian because his foundation wasn't much inferior to hers. Moreover, he'd cultivated to the point of concealment and was a swordsman. When she thought up to here, Enlancio glanced at Yi Xian. "I'll come look for you in 2 days." As soon as she finished speaking, she leaped onto her horse with the intention of leaving. Everyone in the Yi estate was stunned when they witnessed this scene. What's going on? Even Yi Lang was stunned. She's leaving just like that? Right at this moment, the Grand Elder recovered from his shock, and he hurriedly walked over to Enlancio's back and bowed slightly. "Missin, you're not going to compete with my clan's Yi Lang?" And Lancio didn't even turn around. "He doesn't have the qualifications." As soon as she finished speaking, she spurred her horse on and vanished from the fields of vision of everyone in the Yi estate. Everyone in the Yi estate behind Lancio was dumbstruck. On the other hand, Yi Lang's expression was extremely unsightly, as if he'd eaten shit. He'd been disregarded. This was the first time he'd been disregarded since he'd made a name for himself. It couldn't be tolerated. Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Lang suddenly charged forward, causing the Grand Elder's expression to turn grim. He wanted to stop Yi Lang, but it was already too late. Right at this moment, Lancio suddenly stopped. In the next moment, she turned around and pointed her spear at Yi Lang. A shapeless pressure forcefully stopped Yi Lang. Yi Lang's expression turned grim. "This is spear intent. Spear intent." Yi Lang gazed at Lancio with astonishment, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. She comprehended spear intent at such a young age? When she saw Yi Lang remain motionless, Lancio put her spear away. "If you didn't stop, then I would have thought highly of you. Unfortunately, you stopped. No wonder you reincarnated. You're extraordinarily bad." As soon as she finished speaking, she glanced at the Yi estate and Yi Xian and Yi Ling, who were left out in the cold, and then she shook her head lightly. The higher-ups of the Yi estate are really a bunch of pigs. As soon as she finished speaking, she spurred her horse on and left. On the spot, Yi Lang clenched his fists tightly while his expression was extremely unsightly. On the other hand, Yi Xian led Yi Ling back to his courtyard. He didn't care about the matters between Yi Lang, the Grand Elder, and the others at all. All he wanted to do now was cultivate properly, accompany his younger sister, and wait patiently for the competition in 2 days. At that time he would bring his younger sister to the imperial capital. "Big brother, that big sister from before was so beautiful." Within the room, Yi Ling spoke abruptly. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Ling and smiled. "My younger sister will definitely be very beautiful in the future as well." These words weren't false. Yi Xian's appearance wasn't bad, and his younger sister was even a beauty in the making. So, she would definitely be a drop-dead gorgeous beauty when she grew up. Yi Ling smiled sweetly while she felt very happy in her heart. After Yi Ling fell asleep, Yi Xian entered the pagoda of purgatory. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Senior, that woman was actually able to see through my cultivation of concealment. Didn't you say that no one has cultivated this cultivation of concealment in the past?" After a short moment of silence, the mysterious woman said, "Your cultivation of concealment is unlike others." Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he hurriedly asked, "How is it different?" She said, "It's very easy for others to cultivate their cultivation of concealment, but it'll only cause you more pain." Yi Xian was extremely puzzled. "Why?" The mysterious woman said, "Because they cultivate their cultivation, but you cultivate your muscles, bones, internal organs, and limbs. Understand?" Yi Xian was speechless. "P.S. I've been participating in a poverty alleviation event recently. A web novelist entered the school to provide spiritual poverty alleviation. I met 2 fans in the school. One of them was even a girl. She said she liked the unfettered one in Little White. I was stunned. What I want to say is that I'll update steadily now and I'll explode once the event is over. I've never gone back on my word, right? Because I'm running around and putting on airs, so I'm really quite busy. Please forgive me." Chapter 10. Yi Xian didn't really understand the woman's explanation, but he didn't make a fuss about it. In any case, it was fine as long as it wasn't disadvantageous to him. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian asked another question. "Senior, you've seen that woman from before. What do you think of her?" That woman was naturally in Lancio. The woman spoke indifferently. "She's average. You and your younger sister aren't inferior to her. Especially your younger sister, you're even better than her." "My younger sister?" Yi Xian was stunned. "What do you mean, senior?" The woman said, "Don't worry about that for now. Now that you've grasped the basic sword technique, you can try cultivating some sword techniques." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "What sword techniques?" "Sword techniques." This kind of existence was rather rare. One had to know that the Yi family only had about 10 types of martial skills after so many years. Moreover, they were all low-grade martial skills. Martial techniques were divided into grades, and they were divided into the Heaven rank, Earth rank, Spirit World rank, Profound rank, Mortal rank, and Common rank. On the other hand, the Yi clan's best martial technique was only at the low grade of the Mortal rank, and it was something that only the Patriarch could cultivate. On the other hand, only the city governor's estate possessed the best martial technique in the entire city, a low-grade Spirit rank martial technique. Martial techniques could be said to be even more precious than medicinal pills. As for sword techniques, they were even rarer, and they probably didn't even exist in the entire city. Meanwhile, the woman said, I have 2 types of sword techniques and you can choose from them. The first is a comparatively good sword technique, and it possesses extremely formidable lethality. However, once you cultivate it to a certain level, it will reach a limit. The other type is an evolutionary type. It has no grade or limit, and the stronger you are, the stronger it will become. It can accompany you forever. However, this sword technique has an extremely huge flaw, and it's that if your killing intent and conviction in the sword Dao aren't strong enough, then it will grow weaker and weaker. Conversely, if your killing intent and conviction in the sword Dao grow stronger and stronger, then it will grow stronger and stronger until it has no limit. Yi Xian said solemnly, Senior, can I cultivate both? The mysterious woman said, You can't bite off more than you can chew. You can cultivate other sword techniques in the future, but for now it's best to only cultivate a single one. Because your knowledge and understanding of the sword Dao isn't deep. You won't be able to chew off more than you can chew. Every single sword skill, especially the sword skills that I've imparted to you, are not ordinary sword skills. A sword skill is a kind of attitude, a kind of life, a kind of sword principle. Do you understand? Yi Xian looked around and asked, Is Senior also a swordsman? The mysterious woman said indifferently, You ask too many questions. Yi Xian was speechless. The mysterious woman said, Choose, which one do you choose? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Naturally, it's the second. The mysterious woman said, You have a big heart, but remember, a big heart has to be matched with strength. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. The mysterious woman said, This sword skill of mine is called one sword to decide life and death. The essence of this sword skill is that when I attack, it will definitely decide your life and death. The cultivation method of this sword skill is different from other sword skills. It's a type of faith in the sword Dao. So, whether you're able to cultivate it or not is entirely up to your own fortune. As soon as the mysterious woman finished speaking, something appeared in Yi Xian's mind, the circulation of a sword skill. Yi Xian hurriedly withdrew Ling Xiao's sword and executed it according to the circulation method of the sword skill. However, he was shocked to discover that it was completely ineffective according to that method. Not only was it ineffective, but he even felt his heart suffocated and extremely uncomfortable. Yi Xian looked around with a puzzled expression. Senior, what's this? The mysterious woman said, The cultivation method of this sword skill is divided into 6 stages. You haven't unlocked the first stage yet, so you're naturally unable to execute it. As for when you'll be able to execute it, that'll depend on your own fortune. Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face. Fuck, what the hell is this sword skill? It still needs to be unlocked? The mysterious woman suddenly said, A swordsman doesn't use his sword, but once he does, he'll decide the life and death of his enemy. The foundation of this sword skill is the killing intent and faith in the sword Dao. You don't have to deliberately pursue it. When the time comes, you'll naturally succeed. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. For now, this was the only thing he could do. In the following period of time, Yi Xian didn't stop. Instead, he madly sparred with the shadow. Sparring with the shadow greatly improved his speed, strength, and reflexes. He was originally a veteran of hundreds of battles. Now, not only had he cultivated to the hidden realm, he had also become a swordsman. His current battle strength was much stronger than before. Although he was only at the 6th grade Qi Change realm, ordinary Qi-controlling realm martial artists were no match for him. Time passed extremely quickly. Very soon, the time for Yi Xian and Yi Lang's life and death duel had arrived. And because of Yi Lang, the life and death duel between the two had been spread by some of the Yi family's disciples. Almost all of Qingqing knew about it. Yi Xian. The people of Qingqing were no strangers to Yi Xian. Back then, it was Yi Xian who had saved the Yi family from a disadvantageous situation in Qingqing. It could be said that Yi Xian was the Yi family's greatest hero. Unfortunately, the Yi family now had Yi Lang. The royal family had no family ties and the aristocratic families were the same. In fact, they were even crueler. Whoever was capable would be supported by the family. And within the family, it was impossible for 2 tigers to live on the same mountain. After all, there was only one patriarch. To put it simply, the Yi family would choose between Yi Xian and Yi Lang. And even a fool would know who to choose. Today was the day of the life and death duel between Yi Lang and Yi Xian. The Yi family had actually invited the other aristocratic families in Qingqing to come and watch. Not only that, but they had also moved the location of the duel to the Yi residence. Outside the Yi residence, The Yi family had built a dueling ring that was dozens of feet long and wide. Some people naturally understood the Yi family's intentions. Yi Lang had been in the limelight recently. At this moment, the Yi family wanted to lick the fire for him so that his prestige would rise to the next level. Of course, it was also to intimidate others. Yi Lang rarely showed his face outside. This time, it was obvious that he wanted to establish his prestige. The Yi family's arrangement was exactly what many people in Qingqing wanted. These people also wanted to see how monstrous the one chosen by heaven was. Therefore, almost all the people in Qingqing rushed to the Yi residence. At this moment, the Yi residence was surrounded so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. There was a sea of people and it was extremely lively. Yi residence. Inside the ancestral shrine, all the elders of the Yi family were present. Yi Lang was also present. Yi Lang was dressed in a black robe. This robe was not an ordinary robe. It was woven with golden silk, and ordinary swords would not be able to damage it. In addition, there was also a green jade tablet hanging on Yi Lang's waist. This jade tablet was not an ordinary item. It was called the congealing jade. It could concentrate and clear the mind. At critical moments, it was very important to keep one's mind clear. Most importantly, this congealing jade stored pure spiritual qi. Yi Lang was now in the qi-controlling realm and could control qi. For him, possessing this congealing jade was undoubtedly like adding wings to a tiger. It could be said that the Yi family had paid a great price for Yi Lang. However, everyone in the Yi family felt that it was worth it. The great elder bowed respectfully to the ancestral tablets of the Yi family. The heavens are watching over us. The ancestors are watching over us. Our Yi family has produced a one chosen by heaven. From today onwards, our Yi family will regain its former glory. As he spoke, everyone present bowed deeply. After that, the great elder turned around to look at Yi Lang. Yi Lang, today is your first battle. You don't have to hold back against Yi Xian. All the elders at the side nodded when they heard this. Yi Xian was too much of a thorn and it was best to eliminate him. Yi Lang grinned. Of course not. The great elder nodded. I've received news that people from the nearby Yan City and Luo City have come to Azure City. I presume they were sent by the powers in those cities. Today's battle between you and Yi Xian is to build momentum for you. After you kill Yi Xian, those powers will definitely try to rope in our Yi family, and it'll be able to spread your name. With their help in spreading the news, you'll have a great chance to obtain the attention of the people on the mountain, and even the attention of Karaki Academy. Yi Lang nodded lightly. I understand. The great elder walked over to stand before Yi Lang and lightly patted Yi Lang on the shoulder. A one chosen by heaven possesses the memories of his previous life. No matter who you were in your previous life, you have the bloodline of my Yi clan. You don't object to this, right? Yi Lang smiled. Of course. My soul and blood belong to the Yi clan. However, there was a trace of ridicule on the corners of his mouth. Yi Xian was his stepping stone, and the Yi clan was merely a stepping stone for him. The great elder revealed a trace of a smile. That's good. Let's go. In next to no time, Yi Lang was led out of the Yi estate by the great elder and the other elders, and he arrived at the arena that had just been constructed. The surroundings instantly bustled with noise when they saw Yi Lang. A monstrous genius. An extraordinary monstrous genius that was capable of causing the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth to appear. Such a figure had never appeared in Pine City. Yi Lang glanced at the crowd below, and a wisp of a smile arose on the corners of his mouth. In his past life he'd looked at others in the same way. But in this lifetime the heavens didn't repay him, and he'd caused the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth to appear. In this lifetime he was bound to be one of the countless dazzling pearls of the firmament dimension. Yi Lang would definitely have a place on the monstrous genius rankings of legend. When he thought up to here, the wisp of a smile on Yi Lang's face gradually grew wider. A short moment later, he suddenly turned around to look at the Yi estate. Yi Xian, come out and receive your death. His voice was like a thunderclap that resounded through the sky. Yi Xian. Countless people shot their gazes towards the Yi estate. Where's Yi Xian? Yi Xian hadn't emerged from the entrance of the Yi estate. Could he be afraid? It can't be. Yi Xian was once called Ruthless Yi. He doesn't seem like a person that's afraid of death. Ruthless Yi? Why don't you take a look at who his opponent is? He's the chosen one, and he's the chosen one that can cause the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. Stop talking. Let's wait and see. The Yi estate will definitely give everyone an explanation. Not far away, the Grand Elder of the Yi estate glanced at the Yi estate from the viewing platform and frowned. What's he doing? Let's go and have a look. Yi Ku nodded, turned around and left the Yi estate. In a room, Yi Xian was holding a bowl of medicinal cuisine, and he was feeding Yi Ling mouthful by mouthful. He'd come out 2 hours ago. Brother, today is the life and death duel between you and Yi Lang, Yi Ling said softly. Yi Xian smiled lightly. Don't worry. Come, drink this medicine and open your mouth. Be a good boy. After a short moment, Yi Xian stood up. I'm going out for a while. Yi Ling nodded obediently. Yi Xian leaned over and kissed Yi Ling's forehead gently, then turned around to leave. As he walked to the door of the room, Yi Ling's voice suddenly rang out from behind him. Brother will be back, right? Yi Xian nodded. Definitely. Then he pushed the door open and walked out. On the bed, Yi Ling slowly closed her eyes. She stretched her right hand under the bedsheets and there was a pair of scissors there. A long time ago, she had wanted to commit suicide because she didn't want to be a burden to Yi Xian. However, every time she saw Yi Xian, she didn't want to die. She wasn't afraid of death. She was afraid that after she died, Yi Xian would be all alone. Yi Ling took out the pair of scissors and held it tightly. However, if Yi Xian was gone, she would have no reason to live. Chapter 11. Yi Xian has come out. Someone shouted loudly, and the gazes of everyone outside the Yi mansion shot towards the entrance. A man in long clothes walked out from there. It was Yi Xian. The Grand Elder's expression instantly turned cold when he saw Yi Xian, and a cold smile hung on the corners of his mouth. On the other side, the gazes of the Zhang clan's patriarch, city governor, and Li clan's patriarch had descended onto Yi Xian as well. The Zhang clan's patriarch, Zhang Lai, nodded lightly when he saw Yi Xian walk towards the arena in a composed manner. Yi Xian's bearing and courage aren't bad indeed. No wonder those little fellows of my Zhang clan suffered countless losses in the past. The Li clan's patriarch Liu nodded. He's decisive, courageous, and astute. He's a good person. Unfortunately, the Yi clan isn't able to tolerate him. Otherwise, with Yi Lang managing internal affairs while he manages external affairs, it wouldn't be impossible for the Yi clan to become a great clan. The city governor said indifferently, Yi Lang is the grandson of the Grand Elder. He's narrow-minded and he won't allow anyone to threaten Yi Lang's status. The more he thinks in this way, the more impossible it is for his Yi clan to become a great clan. Liu and Zhang Lai nodded lightly when they heard this. In the great clans, 2 tigers couldn't live on the same mountain. However, it didn't mean that there could only be one extraordinary genius in a clan. In some extraordinary clans, there would usually be one that managed internal affairs and one that managed external affairs. It depended entirely on the ability of the individual. It wasn't impossible to play dirty, but if the clan had the ability, then those young masters wouldn't dare act rashly. On the other hand, it was absolutely rare for a clan like the Yi clan to help a genius suppress another genius. In next to no time, Yi Xian walked onto the arena, and Yi Lang stood before him. Yi Lang glanced at Yi Xian and smiled faintly. After that, he looked at the Great Elder. The Great Elder looked at the seating area not far away. A middle-aged man and a beautiful woman were sitting there. These 2 people were not from Qingqing. They were from Yin City and Luoqing. These 2 people represented the 2 biggest powers in the 2 cities. Naturally, the Yi clan could not afford to offend these 2 powers. Noticing the Grand Elder's gaze, the middle-aged man and beautiful woman nodded slightly in response. Seeing this, the head elder smiled. He naturally knew that the Yi clan was expressing goodwill. He looked down and said, according to the Yi clan's rules, once you step onto the life and death stage, you are responsible for your own life and death. No one is allowed to interfere. Today the 2 of you will fight to the death. Whoever leaves the life and death stage will live. Begin now. Begin. Yi Lang gazed at Yi Xian and grinned. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Yi Lang hadn't finished speaking when his expression suddenly changed. Because Yi Xian had suddenly charged towards him like a ferocious tiger. The spectators were stunned when they witnessed this scene. He doesn't even need to make any opening remarks and he's going to fight right away? Yi Xian had experienced countless battles of life and death, and these battles had allowed him to understand a principle. Most of the time, people died because they talked too much. This was a battle of life and death. Was there any need to blabber before death? Sorry, but Yi Xian didn't have such rules. Since Yi Xian had attacked first, it meant that he had the advantage. When he arrived in front of Yi Lang, his aura had already condensed, and he directly blasted his fist towards Yi Lang's face. Collapsing fist. This was a low-grade martial technique of the Yi clan. However, he'd cultivated this low-grade martial technique to the point of perfection. So, this punch was capable of shattering metal. Yi Lang's expression changed slightly when he noticed the strength within Yi Xian's fist. He didn't dare act carelessly, and he lightly pressed his right foot against the ground while his arms crisscrossed in front of him to block. Bang! Along with a low explosion, Yi Lang was directly blasted back repeatedly by the force. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Yi Lang actually fell into a disadvantageous position in the first round? On the other hand, the expressions of all the elders of the Yi clan were unsightly to the extreme. Especially the Grand Elder, his expression was terrifyingly gloomy. On the arena, Yi Xian didn't stop after succeeding with his first attack. He took a stride forward, and he relied on the momentum of his charge to blast another punch towards Yi Lang. It was pure physical strength. In a small place like the City of Azure, martial techniques were extremely rare. So, most battles relied on one's physical strength and experience. After Yi Lang stopped moving, his expression was extremely unsightly. He hadn't expected that Yi Xian's strength would actually be so formidable, and it had completely exceeded his expectations. When he saw Yi Xian blast another punch towards him, he didn't choose to block it. He clenched his right hand into a fist and smashed it towards Yi Xian instead. Traces of a faint glow flickered on his fist. The transformation realm allowed one to possess their own qi, and qi could improve the strength of one's body. Bang! As soon as their fists collided, Yi Lang's expression instantly changed drastically. A moment later, his figure retreated explosively, and he moved over 10 back. Moreover, anyone with a discerning eye could clearly see that Yi Lang's entire arm was trembling violently. The Grand Elder and the others suddenly stood up, and the Grand Elder's eyes were filled with disbelief. How could his strength be so terrifying? This isn't strength that a 5th-grade unending realm cultivator should possess. The eyes of Li Yu and the others were filled with astonishment as well. Yi Xian's strength was slightly abnormal indeed. On the other side, the middle-aged man and beautiful woman from Flame City and Luoqing exchanged glances, and there was a trace of astonishment in their eyes as well. In the life and death arena, after Yi Xian repelled Yi Lang with a single strike, he suddenly stomped his right foot against the ground and shot forward swiftly. He covered a distance of over 10 in an instant. When he arrived in front of Yi Lang, he placed his left foot on the ground, and his right foot suddenly whipped out and swept towards Yi Lang's shoulder. A faint sonic boom resounded as his leg swept past. A ferocious expression flashed in Yi Lang's eyes. He didn't move to block the whip kick, and he allowed Yi Xian's whip kick to sweep his shoulder instead. At the same time, he slammed his fist against Yi Xian's stomach. Bang bang. Yi Lang rolled a few times to the side, and Yi Xian also retreated more than 10 steps. However, he was completely unharmed. He had used his body to forcefully withstand Yi Lang's punch. How is this possible? The Grand Elder's eyes were filled with disbelief. How could he be unharmed? On the other side, Li Yu and the others also frowned. Yi Xian had forcefully taken a punch from Yi Lang and was actually unharmed. In the life and death arena, Yi Lang was also unharmed because the inner armor he was wearing had negated most of Yi Xian's strength. When he saw that Yi Xian was also unharmed, Yi Lang's brows furrowed deeply. How could you be unharmed? He had used his full strength in that punch just now. Moreover, he had added the power of qi. However, Yi Xian had actually forcefully withstood it. In the distance, Yi Xian glanced at Yi Lang. He slowly clenched his right hand. His right sleeve directly exploded, and the veins on his entire arm bulged. It was quite a terrifying sight. Yi Lang stared at Yi Xian. You concealed your strength, you. At this point, his pupils suddenly shrank because Yi Xian had already rushed in front of him. Bang! Under the gaze of countless people, Yi Lang suffered another loss. His entire body was directly pushed to the edge of the arena. In the Grand Elder's stand, he said angrily, "This is a life and death arena, why are you still talking nonsense?" Obviously, he was extremely dissatisfied with Yi Lang. Not to mention the Grand Elder, the other elders were also somewhat dissatisfied. This was the first time Yi Lang had suffered a loss, and now he still wanted to talk nonsense. He was a little stupid. In the life and death arena, Yi Xian did not stop. He once again charged toward Yi Lang. In the distance, Yi Lang's expression suddenly turned ferocious. He raised his hands. Boom! A powerful airflow suddenly overflowed from his body. It's the qi-controlling realm. Below the stage, there was a wave of exclamations. Oh my god, it's really the qi-controlling realm. This Yi Lang has just turned 18, right? He has actually reached the qi-controlling realm. As expected of a super genius who can cause a phenomenon in the heavens and earth. In the Grand Elder's stand, A smile finally appeared on the faces of the Grand Elder and the others, and it was a very bright smile. He glanced at the two people from Yin City and Luoqing not far away. The middle-aged man and the beautiful woman had a hint of shock in their eyes. Seeing this, the smile on the Grand Elder's face became even brighter. In the life and death arena, Yi Lang looked at Yi Xian ferociously. "Let me show you the difference between an ant like you and me." As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot and charged out like a gust of wind. A powerful airflow was emitting from his body. The qi-controlling realm meant that he could already control his qi. This was not something that a physical body realm cultivator could fight against. Opposite Yi Lang, Yi Xian was expressionless. He slowly clenched his right hand and a wave of energy was rolling in his body. The Golden Body Realm. After reaching the Golden Body Realm, his strength was more than 10 times stronger than before. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian charged toward Yi Lang. In the Grand Elder's stand, the crowd shook their heads. Yi Xian was undoubtedly throwing an egg at a rock. The Grand Elder's lips curled into a faint sneer and sarcasm. His physical strength was comparable to a qi-controlling realm cultivator? He was courting death. Soon, under everyone's gaze, Yi Lang and Yi Xian were getting closer and closer. There was a moment of silence. Bang! Under everyone's gaze, a figure was sent flying. Then everyone was dumbfounded. The person who was sent flying was not Yi Xian but Yi Lang. How could this be possible? The Grand Elder looked at Yi Lang with disbelief, and he seemed as if he'd lost his soul. On the other hand, everyone in the surroundings of the life and death arena seemed as if they'd been petrified. He lost just like that? The chosen of the heavens lost just like that? In the life and death arena, Yi Xian did not stop. Instead, he continued to charge towards Yi Long, who was sent flying. "How dare you!" Right at this moment, the Grand Elder suddenly shouted furiously. In the next moment, he charged onto the arena and slapped his palm at Yi Xian. A wisp of a ferocious expression flashed in Yi Xian's eyes when he saw the Grand Elder attack. He didn't retreat, and he charged forward swiftly and smashed his fist at the Grand Elder instead. Bang! Along with a deep explosion, the Great Elder's entire body was directly blasted several feet away. Yi Xian was about to continue attacking. Meanwhile, the elders of the Yi clan had ascended the life and death arena, and countless Yi clan guards with crossbows in their hands had appeared around the arena. Yi Xian clenched his fist slowly, and then he glanced coldly at the surroundings. What? Is there a group fight in this life and death arena? In the distance, the Grand Elder suddenly pointed angrily at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, you cheated." Yi Xian looked at the Grand Elder, and the Grand Elder said angrily, "Your Dantian has clearly been destroyed, so why do you possess such formidable strength?" Yi Xian laughed coldly. "None of your business." Everyone was speechless. P.S. Some readers even asked if I was a man or a woman. Chapter 12. You. The Grand Elder pointed angrily at Yi Xian, and his face was livid with rage. Yi Xian glanced coldly at the Grand Elder and the others, and then he sneered, "Grand Elder, we agreed that I would have a life and death battle with him, yet all of you suddenly attacked. TSK. Grand Elder, you actually don't even want your face anymore. Everyone in the world is watching. Aren't you afraid that the Yi clan will become the laughingstock of the world?" Everyone looked at the Yi clan when they heard Yi Xian, and all of them had rather strange expressions on their faces. It was supposed to be a one-on-one battle, yet the Yi clan had attacked in unison. It wasn't a one-on-one battle, it was a group fight. The crowd below the arena was already discussing animatedly. On the other side, Li Yu's group of 3 glanced at each other, and there was an indescribable smile in their eyes. Surprise. A great surprise. They hadn't imagined that Yi Lang would actually be no match for Yi Xian after attaining the World Transformation Realm. This was naturally an extremely good thing for the 3 clans. Li Yu stood up and gazed at the Grand Elder. "Grand Elder, you asked us to watch the battle. What? You want us to watch your Yi clan gang up on a youth?" Zhang Lai sneered, "This is the legendary life and death battle of the Yi clan? A group fight as soon as they enter the arena? How laughable." Ah. The city governor, Jiang Yan, glanced at the Grand Elder and spoke indifferently, "Grand Elder, everyone in the world is watching." The Grand Elder's expression was extremely unsightly. He glanced at Yi Lang, and the armor Yi Lang wore had shattered into pieces. Moreover, blood was flowing incessantly from the corners of Yi Lang's mouth. Obviously, he'd suffered extremely severe internal injuries. If he continued to attack, then he would definitely be killed by Yi Xian. The Grand Elder slowly clenched his fists when he thought up to here. Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Looks like the Grand Elder doesn't intend to let me fight him in a one-on-one battle. I wonder what excuse he's going to use to get rid of me. Come on, tell me. I'm listening." Everyone is listening. The Great Elder looked up at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, the old man suspects that this duel is unfair. You definitely cheated you." Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly pointed angrily at the Grand Elder. "Cheating? Old dog, do you have any shame? I challenged him to a duel and if I win I'm cheating? Your face is thicker than my butt." The Great Elder said fiercely, "Yi Clan's disciples, listen up. Yi Xian is rebelling against his superiors, shoot him to death." Obviously he no longer cared about anything else. Wah! There was an uproar underground. This Yi family is really shameless. They can't afford to lose. He's not just a sore loser. He's shameless to the extreme. Does he think he cheated just because he won? Why is the Yi family's Great Elder like this? What can we do? Heaven's chosen one was his grandson. How could he let him die? It's just that this method is really too shameless. The middle-aged man from Yen City and the beautiful woman from Luo City exchanged glances and shook their heads. They didn't conceal the disdain in their eyes at all. The guards around the life and death arena looked at each other. Meanwhile, the Grand Elder roared furiously, "What are you waiting for? Shoot him to death." The guards hesitated for a moment and were about to attack when a voice suddenly resounded, "The Patriarch has emerged from his closed-door cultivation." The Grand Elder's body trembled slightly when he heard this. He looked at the entrance of the Yi estate and saw a middle-aged man walking over slowly. It was the current patriarch of the Yi family, Yi Tsang. He was also the strongest expert in the Yi family. "Greetings, Patriarch." Everyone in the surroundings prostrated themselves on the ground. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Tsang but didn't speak. Yi Tsang walked up to the life and death arena and glanced at the Grand Elder. "Look at what you've done." The Grand Elder's expression was slightly ugly and he bowed slightly. "Patriarch." Yi Tsang paid no attention to the Grand Elder. Instead, he cupped his fists towards the surroundings. "I've made a fool of myself." As he spoke, he glanced at the Grand Elder. From this moment onward, the Grand Elder's status as an elder will be removed, and he'll be demoted to an ordinary elder. He'll never be able to wield any power. The Grand Elder's expression changed slightly, and he was about to speak when Yi Tsang looked at Yi Xian instead. "Let's put an end to this matter, all right?" Yi Xian shook his head and pointed at Yi Lang. "My life and death battle with him isn't over yet." Yi Tsang frowned slightly when he heard this. Meanwhile, the Grand Elder and a group of elders walked over to Yi Tsang's side, and the Grand Elder spoke solemnly, "Patriarch, Yi Lang is the heaven's chosen one, and he even caused a phenomenon in the world. His future is limitless. Although he lost to Yi Xian's elixir field has been destroyed, and he's already a cripple. The limit of his life is that of a martial artist, and there's no way he'll be able to walk out of Qingqing." Yi Tsang glared at the Grand Elder coldly. "You're the one who destroyed his elixir field, aren't you?" The Grand Elder clenched his fists tightly. "I'm the one who did it. Patriarch, he no longer has a future, but Yi Lang has a limitless future. If we protect him today, he'll definitely bring glory to the Yi family in the future." The surrounding elders echoed in agreement. Yi Lang could not be killed. This concerned the Yi family's future glory. Yi Tsang was silent. Every family needed geniuses. Yi Xian's elixir field had been destroyed, and he was undoubtedly no longer able to shoulder the burden of the Yi family's future. However, Yi Lang was the heaven's chosen one, and he was the one who caused a phenomenon in the world. The Yi family needed someone like that. Thinking to this point, Yi Tsang looked at Yi Xian. "From now on, aside from the title of Crown Prince, you'll be given all the privileges you've been receiving before. This matter is over, understand?" Yi Xian smiled. His smile was a little sad. Yi Xian looked at Yi Tsang. "Actually, Patriarch, you've known about everything that happened in the residence for a long time, but you didn't come out to deal with it. Instead, you let the Grand Elder and the others treat me like that. I think you're not only afraid of the Grand Elder and the others, but you're also afraid of me. You're afraid that I'll grow too fast and become a threat to you, am I right?" Yi Tsang narrowed his eyes. "You have no sense of propriety." "Propriety?" Yi Xian smiled. "Patriarch, the Grand Elder and the others suppressed me with Yi Lang. They even secretly damaged my elixir field. Patriarch, are you not going to punish them at all? Or is it that I, Yi Xian, am already a cripple and destined to not go far? That's why I'm worthless, and it's not worth it for you to offend Yi Lang and the others for me, am I right?" Yi Tsang glared at Yi Xian. He did not speak, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Although Yi Xian was once a genius of the Yi family, he was not the Grand Elder's grandson, nor was he a direct descendant of Yi Tsong's bloodline. As Yi Xian had said, Yi Tsong was indeed afraid. This time Yi Tsong had not come out of seclusion, just as Yi Xian had said, to let Yi Xian and the Grand Elder fight to the death, so that he could weaken both sides after he came out. A way to balance things out. As the patriarch, he did not think that he had done anything wrong. However, at this moment Yi Xian had broken through the window, which meant that there was no turning back. The surroundings were silent, but everyone was looking at Yi Xian. At this moment, even Li Yu and the others felt that it was not worth it for Yi Xian. Even though the aristocratic families were pragmatic, treating a meritorious member of the family in such a way was truly disappointing and despicable. Meanwhile, Yi Xian laughed, and it was an extremely sorrowful laugh. He turned around and glanced at the Yi residence, and there were traces of ripples in his eyes as if he was recalling the past. I, Yi Xian, became the heir at the age of 12, and I've fought to the death for the Yi family on countless occasions. However, all my efforts were exchanged for such an outcome. As he spoke, he removed the Yi family's emblem from his chest and tossed it on the ground. I, Yi Xian, swear in front of everyone today that from this moment onward I, Yi Xian, and my younger sister Yi Ling are no longer members of the Yi family. Our lives have nothing to do with the Yi family, and even if we die, we won't be buried in the Yi family's ancestral shrine. The expressions of everyone instantly changed when they heard this. Especially the members of the Yi family. Withdraw from the family. This was something that had never happened in Qing City. Even Li Yu and the others had disbelief in their eyes. Does Yi Xian really intend to break off all relations with the Yi family? Yi Tsong gazed at Yi Xian and said, "This is your choice." Yi Xian didn't speak and he just turned around and left. Right at this moment, the Grand Elder suddenly said, "Wait." Yi Xian stopped moving. The Grand Elder glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and then he gazed at Yi Tsong and said, "Patriarch, even though his dantian has been destroyed and he has no future, his current combat strength isn't ordinary. So, he definitely holds a grudge against our Yi family now. If we don't eliminate him now, then he'll definitely become a huge threat to our Yi family in the future." A black-robed elder spoke in a low voice, "Patriarch Yi Xian has publicly betrayed the clan. If we don't kill him now, then others will inevitably follow suit in the future. Moreover, his combat strength is extraordinary, so it'll be a huge calamity to our Yi family if he's recruited by the other clans." The other elders of the Yi clan hurriedly chimed in when they heard this. Yi Tsong stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Suddenly he raised his right hand, and it didn't take long for all the Yi clan's crossbow guards to aim their crossbows at Yi Xian. After that, Yi Tsong's icy cold voice resounded, "Yi Xian has publicly betrayed the clan. According to the clan's rules, he should be executed immediately. Kill him." Right when the crossbow guards were about to attack, a voice suddenly resounded. "Wait." Everyone looked towards the source of the voice, and they saw a woman holding a spear walking over slowly from afar. The expressions of the Grand Elder and the others instantly changed when they saw this woman. It wasn't just the Grand Elder, even the expressions of Jiang Yan and the others had changed. Especially Jiang Yan, he hurriedly ran over to the woman and bowed deeply. "The city governor of Qingqing greets the state scholar." The state scholar was Lanxiu, the youngest state scholar of the Jiang kingdom. On the other hand, state scholars were superior to officials in the Jiang kingdom, and it was even to the extent that the king didn't have the authority to restrain them. As for those beneath the king, all officials of the Jiang kingdom had to pay their respects to them. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man from Flame City and the beautiful woman from Luo City hurriedly walked over to Lanxiu as well. They bowed slightly, and then the middle-aged man said, "I'm Mo Xing, and I represent the Mo clan of Flame City to greet the state scholar." The beautiful woman followed closely behind him and said, "I'm the Yu clan, and I represent the Yu clan of Luo City to greet the state scholar." They didn't have the qualifications to speak to Lanxiu on their own, and they could only barely do so by bringing along their clans. Lanxiu nodded lightly and said, "I have something to deal with." The three of them hurriedly moved aside. Under the gazes of everyone, Lanxiu tapped the tip of her foot lightly, and then her figure seemed like a strand of breeze that floated up into the air before descending elegantly onto the life and death arena. The Ascension Realm. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The youngest Ascension Realm expert of the Jiang Kingdom. Lanxiu walked slowly towards Yi Xian and said, "Our agreement in 2 days has arrived." Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck. Especially the Grand Elder and the others, they seemed as if they'd lost their souls. "She intends to challenge Yi Xian." Someone in the surroundings recovered from his shock and exclaimed, "My God! She really intends to challenge Yi Xian. How? How could this be possible?" The Grand Elder seemed as if he'd lost his soul as he muttered, "How could this be? How could she challenge Yi Xian whose dantian has been shattered? This is absolutely impossible." Yi Tsang clenched his fists tightly as he stared fixedly at Yi Xian who stood nearby. Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Xian gazed at Enlancio. "All right." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a sword instantly appeared in his palm. The spirit sword. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was petrified. "He's a swordsman." A voice suddenly resounded. As soon as this voice resounded, the surroundings suddenly fell silent to the point a falling needle could practically be heard. P.S. New book tickets, recommendation tickets, all tickets. Chapter 13. Everyone stared blankly at Yi Xian who stood on the life and death arena, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. On the other hand, the countenance of the Yi clan's patriarch Yi Tsang had turned pale at this moment. He clenched his fists tightly, and he seemed as if he'd lost his soul. As for the Grand Elder and the others, they'd been completely petrified. A swordsman. A swordsman has never appeared in the city. How could Yi Xian possibly be a swordsman? Enlancio was just about to speak when the Grand Elder suddenly roared furiously, "Impossible! Absolutely impossible! You can't be a swordsman." Yi Xian glanced at the Grand Elder who was on the verge of going mad. "I'm sorry, but I really am a swordsman. I'll piss you off to death, you old dog." A mouthful of blood essence suddenly sprayed from the Grand Elder's mouth, and then he pointed a finger at Yi Xian while his expression was savage to the extreme. As if he'd thought of something, he hurriedly turned around to look at Yi Tsang. "Patriarch, this person can't be allowed to live. Otherwise, he'll definitely be a calamity to our Yi clan in the future." Right at this moment, Enlancio's beautiful brows knit together slightly. "You really have a bad disposition. It's the first time I've seen such behavior." The Grand Elder's expression changed slightly when he heard this, and he was just about to speak when Enlancio suddenly said, "I'll definitely take your head today if you say another word." The Grand Elder's face instantly turned pale, and he didn't dare speak another word. Because City Governor Jiang Yan and the others were looking at him with hostile expressions. Enlancio paid no attention to the members of the Yi clan who had unsightly expressions on their faces, and she gazed at Yi Xian instead. "Draw your sword." Yi Xian bowed slightly, and then he pointed Ling Xiao towards the ground while remaining motionless on the spot. Enlancio who stood before Yi Xian nodded lightly, and then she took a step forward. Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly took a swift step forward, and his speed was so swift that he was like a gust of light wind. In Yi Xian's hand, the Ling Xiao sword was pointed straight at Enlancio. Just a single strike. It was a very simple and direct sword strike. Meanwhile, Enlancio moved slightly to the side. In the next moment, the spear in her hand stabbed forward, and this stab directly stabbed the tip of Yi Xian's sword. Dang! An ear-piercing sound of metal colliding resounded. Yi Xian's entire body was directly blasted to the edge of the arena. However, in the next moment he'd once again appeared before Enlancio. However, he hadn't even unsheathed his sword when Enlancio's spear had already arrived half an inch from the center of his forehead. However, there was a trace of surprise in Enlancio's eyes. Because Yi Xian's sword was pressed against the tip of her spear. She wanted to stop when the time was right, but the fact was that if she didn't stop when the time was right, then this spear wouldn't be able to kill Yi Xian. The corners of Enlancio's mouth lifted slightly. "Your combat awareness is pretty good." As soon as she finished speaking, her right hand shook lightly, and then her spear was like a nimble venomous snake as it swept towards Yi Xian's shoulder at a strange angle. At practically the exact same moment, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward swiftly, and he relied on the impact of Enlancio's attack to stab his sword at Enlancio's heart. Exchanging an injury for an opportunity to attack. The arc on the corners of Enlancio's mouth grew wider. She didn't seem to have moved at all, yet the spear in her hand had suddenly stood upright to block Yi Xian's sword. Dang! Another ear-piercing sound of metal colliding resounded. After his strike failed, Yi Xian's figure floated lightly towards the right like a ghost, and then his sword stabbed down from above at a strange angle towards the center of Enlancio's forehead. The sword suddenly stopped when it was still half an inch away from the center of Enlancio's forehead because the spear in Enlancio's hand had suddenly arrived beneath Yi Xian's armpit. Yi Xian originally thought that it would end here. However, right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly let go of his sword and held Enlancio's spear with both hands, and then he suddenly swept it forward and smashed it directly towards Enlancio. And Lanxio's eyes narrowed slightly as she lightly tapped the ground with her right foot, and then her figure floated backwards. However, Yi Xian was still holding her spear, so this movement of hers directly pulled Yi Xian over as well. Yi Xian seized this opportunity to embrace Lanxio, and this caused Lanxio to be slightly caught off guard. Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Xian directly embraced Lanxio, and then he suddenly roared furiously and directly swung her down. Bang! Both of them smashed to the ground, and the entire life and death arena trembled lightly. But in the next moment, a figure was directly blasted flying. This figure was directly blasted out of the life and death arena. This person was precisely Yi Xian. Outside the life and death arena, Yi Xian crawled up slowly. He wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and then he looked at Lanxio and said, "I didn't mean to offend you." Lanxio, who stood before Yi Xian, sized up Yi Xian and said with a smile, "I understand. I'm a martial artist and I'm not that delicate. I originally thought your sword technique wasn't bad, but I never imagined that not only is your sword technique good, your ability in close combat is so good as well. I presume you've experienced countless battles of life and death." Yi Xian nodded lightly and didn't speak. Lanxio said, "I relied on my advantage in cultivation to compete with you this time, so it's slightly unfair. How about we fight again in the future?" Yi Xian glanced at Lanxio and then he nodded. Alright. This person before him was a true expert, and he would gain much more from fighting her than fighting that shadow. Lanxio nodded and then she seemed to have thought of something. She flicked her finger and a white jade pendant floated over to Yi Xian. "If you don't have anywhere else to go, then you can head to the Imperial Capital's Kuraki Academy. This is my jade pendant, and you can join Kuraki Academy with it. It can be considered as my recommendation." Yi Xian was visibly moved when he heard this. He didn't refuse and he took the jade pendant instead. Because he really needed to join Kuraki Academy to seek medical treatment for his younger sister. Yi Xian put the jade pendant away, and then he cupped his fists to Lanxio. "I can't thank you with words. Yi Xian will forever remember this." Lanxio shook her head. "I cherish geniuses. Until next time." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. She left in a very carefree manner, and it wasn't long before Lanxio vanished from the gazes of everyone. At this moment, everyone was looking at the Yi clan. Especially Jiang Nian and the others, they didn't conceal their pleasure at the Yi clan's misfortune at all. Right at this moment, the middle-aged man and beautiful woman from Yen City suddenly walked over to Yi Xian, and then they cupped their fists to Yi Xian. The middle-aged man said, "Young Master Yi, if you have the chance, please come to Yen City and Luo City as a guest. Befriend them." They'd originally intended to rope Yi Xian in, but now that Lanxio had recommended Yi Xian to Kuraki Academy, they naturally didn't dare try to rope Yi Xian in and had no choice but to befriend him. Yi Xian cupped his fists to them and said, "If I have the chance, I'll definitely do so." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Then it's settled. Until next time." As soon as they finished speaking, they turned around and left. Meanwhile, Yi Tsang suddenly said, "Guards! Take the Grand Elder down." The members of the Yi clan were stunned. It didn't take long for some of the Yi clan's guards to arrive before the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder's face was expressionless and he didn't resist at all. He just allowed the guards to take him down. Yi Tsang gazed at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment and then said, "Yi Xian, from this moment onward, you're the young master of my Yi clan, and you're the next young master of my Yi clan." "You? Young master?" Yi Xian laughed coldly, "I really want to be your young master." At this moment Yi Xian repeated once more. Yi Xian am no longer a member of the Yi clan." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the Yi estate. The expressions of Yi Tsang and the others instantly became extremely unsightly when they heard Yi Xian. It was extremely unsightly. Because they knew very well that Yi Xian wasn't a member of the Yi clan anymore. Moreover, the Yi clan had lost an extraordinary genius, a swordsman genius. Most importantly, this swordsman genius might even hate the Yi clan. Right at this moment, the nearby Zhang clan's patriarch Zhang Lai suddenly roared with laughter, "What a Yi clan! You actually managed to force a peerless genius to leave. Your Yi clan is truly amazing." Liu laughed, "He's not just a peerless genius. This genius is a swordsman." Moreover, in my opinion, that phenomenon was definitely drawn over by Yi Xian. Otherwise, Nguesher would absolutely not have come looking for him. What a joke that the Yi clan thought it was Yi Lang who drew it over. I'm really going to die of laughter. Jiang Nian from the city governor's estate grinned. He didn't speak, but the smile on his face was enough to explain everything. Yi Tsang clenched his right hand tightly, and his face was livid. After a short moment he looked at Jiang Yan. City Governor Jiang, Patriarch Li, Patriarch Zhang, my Yi clan has offended you in the past and... Right at this moment, Zhang Lai suddenly waved his hand. Offended? Your Yi clan was acting all high and mighty earlier. What #1 clan in Qingqing? Moreover, you even wanted the mining rights for the surrounding mines for 10 years. What? Are you going to admit defeat now and let this matter go? Dream on. As he spoke, he glanced coldly at everyone in the Yi residence. Today the old man will leave his words here. From this moment on, anyone from the Yi residence who dares to take half a step out of the Yi residence will be eliminated by the Zhang family. Liu suddenly said, it's the same for my Li clan. Anyone from the Yi clan who dares to appear before my Li clan will be killed by my Li clan. With that said he looked at Jiang Yan. City Lord Jiang, what do you think? City Lord Jiang Yan smiled lightly. Brother Li, Brother Zhang, I am naturally on your side. Haha. Hearing that, Liu burst out laughing. As for the Yi clan members, their faces were ashen. Needless to say, the Yi clan was finished in Qing City. Right at this moment, the Yi clan's patriarch Yi Tsang suddenly walked over to the Grand Elder, and then he slapped the Grand Elder's face. It's all your fault, you old dog. Bang. The Grand Elder was slapped to the ground. As for the members of the Yi clan, they glared resentfully at the Grand Elder. If it wasn't for the Grand Elder, the Yi clan wouldn't have fallen to such a state. The Grand Elder suddenly started laughing madly. Yi Xian was right. Once one loses power in the Yi clan, one is worse than a dog. Ah. Yi Tsang stared fixedly at the Grand Elder. Cripple his Danton and lock him in the water prison for life. Yi Xian returned to his room and walked over to his bed. On the bed, Yi Ling gazed at Yi Xian, and as she gazed at him, she started laughing. As she laughed, she started crying. Yi Xian started laughing as well. Brother? Yi Ling stood up and hugged Yi Xian tightly. Yi Xian carried Yi Ling on his back as he walked out of the room and left the Yi residence. At dusk. In the Yi residence, in Yi Lang's courtyard, Yi Lang sat on the ground with his legs crossed. His hair was disheveled and his face was ferocious. Yi Xian, this isn't the end of our business. Today's humiliation will be returned 100-fold in the future. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly descended behind Yi Rong, and in the next moment, a ray of silver light suddenly flashed past Yi Rong's neck. Yi Lang's head was separated from his neck. The person who came was, of course, Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked coldly at Yi Lang's head beneath his feet. I'm sorry. I, Yi Xian, never leave any loose ends. He turned around and left after finishing his sentence. Outside Qingqing, a young man carried a little girl on his back as he walked out of the city. Brother, are we not going back to the Yi clan anymore? Not anymore. Brother, where will our home be in the future? A place where the sister is home to me. I'm getting cold. I'll take you to get treated. Brother, what if I can't be treated? I'll die with you. Chapter 14. Not long after Yi Xian carried his sister on his back, he suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him stood 3 people. It was Jiang Yan's trio. Jiang Yan's trio walked in front of Yi Xian. Jiang Yan faintly smiled. The old man's trio is here to send young Master Yi off. Yi Xian put down his sister and cupped his fists towards the trio. Many thanks. Jiang Yan smiled. He took out a white jade bottle and handed it to Yi Xian. There are a total of 30 body-nourishing pills inside. It's a small token from our 3 families. I hope you'll accept it. Body-nourishing pills. Yi Xian glanced at the 3 of them, feeling puzzled. As if he knew that Yi Xian was confused, Jiang Yan smiled and said, the old man also bluntly said that the old man's trio would like to form a good relationship with young Master Yi. Although young Master Yi is no longer a member of the Yi family, he is still a citizen of Qingqing. If you leave this place and become famous in the future, the old man's trio might be able to benefit from it. Yi Xian took the white jade bottle and slightly bowed. Many thanks. Although he didn't want to owe a favor, he really needed this body-nourishing pill. For his sister, he was willing to owe a favor no matter how big it was. At this time, Liu suddenly said, young Master Yi, are you going to the imperial capital? Yi Xian nodded. I'm going to the imperial capital's Kuraki College. Liu faintly smiled. He waved his right hand and soon, a carriage rushed over from the city. Liu smiled. The journey to the imperial capital is long if you walk on foot. I'm afraid it will take more than half a year. The 2 of you can take the carriage to Chenshan City first. From there, you can take a cloud ship to the imperial capital. It just so happens that in a month is the recruitment period for Karaki College, you should be able to make it in time. After Liu finished speaking, Zhang Lai took out a bag of money and a map and handed it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is also a small token of my appreciation. This trip to the imperial capital will require all kinds of expenses. Although this isn't much, it should be enough for an emergency. This scroll is a map, and there are some dangerous places marked on it. You must not pass through these places. Yi Xian glanced at the three of them and then cupped his fists. I, Yi Xian, will never forget what the three of you have done for me today. I will repay you in the future. Farewell. After saying that, he put away the things and carried his sister into the carriage. Soon Yi Xian and his sister disappeared from the trio's line of sight. Watching Yi Xian and his sister disappear into the distance, Liu suddenly whispered, "Will this person be sentimental?" Jiang Yin said with a smile, "Have you seen his sister?" Hearing this, the three of them immediately understood. Jiang Yin looked at the increasingly blurry carriage in the distance and said softly, "This person is decisive and never soft-hearted. He is a ruthless character. If the Yi family has such a person, I'm afraid we will have to lower our heads for countless years to come." Fortunately, the Yi clan was a group of idiots. They actually went to support the so-called Heaven's Chosen One. Even if they wanted to support him, they shouldn't have suppressed another genius like this. Now they forcefully forced him to break off relations with the Yi clan. That Yi clan's great elder and clan head are really pig brains. Liu smiled and said, "It's a good thing for us, isn't it?" Jiang Yin smiled, "Of course." Zhang Lai suddenly smiled and said, "How do the two of you think the Yi clan should be divided?" Liu roared with laughter, "We naturally should divide it however we want. Come, let's go back and divide this pie." The three of them turned around and left. On the other side of a mountain, a woman held a spear in her hand as she gazed at a carriage that was being tested. She was Enlancio. There was an old man who held a walking stick made of withered wood standing behind Enlancio. Enlancio said, "Elder Ling, what do you think?" The old man glanced at the carriage and said, "Based on how he fought you just now, he's probably experienced countless battles of life and death. As for his sword technique, I'm still unable to discern where he inherited it from. But there's one thing I'm sure of, and it's that he can be considered to be a swordsman." When he spoke up to her, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Young miss, even though he's not bad, he and you are from two different worlds. After all, you're already on the martial rankings." The martial rankings. There were a few hundred minor kingdoms in the entire Pine Prefecture, a few large kingdoms and even hidden clans and sections. Moreover, the disciples of all these powers had a common objective, and it was to ascend the martial rankings. The martial rankings was the most authoritative ranking in the entire Pine Prefecture. Those that were able to ascend it were geniuses amongst geniuses, monstrous geniuses amongst monstrous geniuses. On the other hand, only two people in the entire kingdom of Jiang had ascended the rankings. One of them was Enlancio. Enlancio glanced at Elder Ling and grinned, "Elder Ling, you think that I'm interested in him because I gave him the jade pendant, and you're afraid that I would be tempted?" Elder Ling hadn't expected that his young miss would be so frank, and he immediately lowered his head slightly and remained silent. Enlancio gazed at the carriage that had vanished into the distance. "Elder Ling, you've misunderstood. I wasn't asking about his natural talent when I asked you just now, I was asking about him." Elder Ling frowned when he heard this. Enlancio chuckled lightly. "That's how a brother should be." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left swiftly. Elder Ling remained silent on the spot for a long time, and then he turned around and left. Yi Xian drove the carriage forward while Yi Ling held tightly onto his arm by his side. Yi Xian glanced towards the distance, and then he withdrew the map that Zhang Lai gave him. He glanced at the map and then he instantly frowned. He who'd never left Pine City suddenly realized that the world was really huge. They'd traveled for almost 4 hours, but they were still within the boundaries of Pine City. Moreover, according to their current speed, it would take at least another 4 or 5 days for them to arrive at Thousand Mountain City. Yi Xian didn't choose to continue traveling, because it was already late and he didn't dare to drive deep into the mountains with his younger sister. If he was alone, then he wouldn't be afraid at all. After all, he'd frequently fought and killed others in the mountains in the past. But now, with his younger sister by his side, he didn't dare act in such an unbridled manner. The moon and stars were sparse in the sky, and it was deep and distant. Yi Xian and Yi Ling sat next to each other by a campfire, and a half-cooked turkey was on top of the campfire. It was the turkey that Li Yu and the others had prepared in the carriage for them. Yi Ling glanced at the surroundings. Besides where they were, the surroundings could be said to be completely dark. Because the moon in the sky had been covered by dark clouds. The surroundings were unusually silent. Yi Ling held Yi Xian tightly. Yi Xian grinned. "Don't be afraid." As he spoke, he glanced at the surroundings. How familiar. Familiar. Ever since he became the heir, he would often represent the Yi family to compete with the disciples of the other two families for mines. And their battlefields were often deep in the mountains and forests. He wasn't unfamiliar with forests at all, and he was used to engaging in life and death battles at night. Yi Ling tilted her head as she looked at Yi Xian. "Brother, with you here I'm not afraid." Yi Xian gently rubbed Yi Ling's little head. "It's good that you're not afraid. You must remember, even if the sky collapses, I'll be there to hold it up." Yi Ling smiled sweetly. After the siblings ate the turkey, Yi Ling quickly fell asleep. Yi Xian carried Yi Ling into the carriage, and then he sat down cross-legged before entering the prison pagoda. When he left the Yi family, his battle with Enlancio had given him a deep insight. After seeing his opponent's speed and reaction as well as his combat awareness, he discovered that he was still lacking in many ways. Yi Xian didn't spar with his shadow. Instead, he recalled every single detail of his battle with Enlancio. In the beginning he was recalling, but he gradually started to imagine if he was Enlancio. Or it should be said that he was learning from Enlancio, and at the same time he reflected on the timing and angle of his attack. 2 hours later, Yi Xian suddenly stood up, and then he started to practice with his sword. He was practicing by himself. No, it should be said that he imagined an enemy, and this enemy was Enlancio. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian suddenly put his sword away, and then he sat on the ground while a faint smile hung on the corners of his mouth. The mysterious woman suddenly said, "You gained something?" Yi Xian nodded. "When I fought her earlier, I shouldn't have executed my first attack like that. It was that attack that lost momentum and it caused me to be suppressed. If I hadn't immediately abandoned my sword, then I probably wouldn't have even had the strength to fight back." The mysterious woman said, "It's good that you understand that." Yi Xian raised his head and glanced at her. "Senior, you knew it from the beginning, right?" She said, "What does it have to do with you that I know? There are some things that only belong to you after you comprehend them yourself. It's pointless for others to tell you." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Thank you for the guidance." After cultivating for a while, Yi Xian left the pagoda. He glanced at Yi Ling, who was fast asleep, grinned, and then left the carriage. At this moment it was deep into the night. Right at this moment Yi Xian's brows suddenly knit together, and then he turned to the right because a wave of rapid footsteps resounded. In next to no time, a woman appeared in front of Yi Xian. The woman was around 25 or 26 years old, had a foxy appearance, and wore a rather revealing tight dress that revealed a large expanse of her fair chest. Moreover, there were quite a few scars on her body. The woman was slightly stunned when she saw Yi Xian, and then she suddenly ran over to Yi Xian's side. "Young master, someone wants to kill me. Please save me." As she spoke, she wrapped her arms around Yi Xian's arms, and then Yi Xian instantly felt a wave of weakness come from his arms. Moreover, the woman was still forcefully rubbing her large breasts against Yi Xian's arms. Right at this moment, 3 people suddenly appeared not too far away. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man who held a saber in his hand, and the other 2 were old men. Yi Xian's heart shook when he saw them. According to the aura of the middle-aged man in the lead, he was at least at the Qi-controlling realm, and the other 2 old men were at the Qi transformation realm. The middle-aged man and the other 2 had noticed Yi Xian as well, and they frowned when they saw Yi Xian. The middle-aged man stared straight at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" Before Yi Xian could speak, the foxy woman suddenly said, "I've got the item. You stop them and we'll meet at the same place later." After saying that, she turned around and was about to run, but at this moment Yi Xian, who was beside her, suddenly lifted his leg and swept it towards her. The foxy woman's expression changed greatly. She did not expect Yi Xian to suddenly attack, and she immediately put her hands in front of her to block. Bang! The foxy woman's whole body was directly sent flying by Yi Xian's whip kick. On the other side, the 3 people who were about to rush towards Yi Xian were stunned. Yi Xian looked at the foxy woman and said seriously, "Where is the same place you mentioned? Tell me clearly, I'm afraid I won't be able to find it if I get lost." Chapter 15. The fox-like woman stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian coldly glanced at the fox-like woman and then turned to look at the 3 middle-aged men not far away. "I'm just passing by. I won't get involved in your business." After saying that, He retreated to the side of the carriage and the bonfire. A hero saving a damsel in distress? Yi Xian was not an idiot. How could there be so many beautiful women in this world waiting for someone to save them? Outside there were many tricks. If he was not careful, he would die without leaving even his bones. Moreover, without knowing the whole story, he would not get involved in other people's business. Moreover, this fox-like woman wanted to use him, but she did not care about his life or his situation. This proved that this woman was not a good person. Seeing that Yi Xian retreated to the side, the three middle-aged men looked at each other. The middle-aged man cupped his fists at Yi Xian and then looked at the fox-like woman on the ground. "Qin Shang, hand over the thing and I'll let you die a quick death." The fox-like woman retreated to a tree and smiled coldly. "Emocian, if I were you, I would immediately turn around and run for my life." The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" "Da-da-da-da." At this moment, a sudden rush of horse hooves came from not far away. Noticing this scene, the middle-aged man's face changed. "You called for help." The woman named Qin Shang smiled coldly. "What do you think?" The middle-aged man stared at Qin Shang. "My Mo family will remember this." After saying that, the three turned around and disappeared into the night. Only Yi Xian and Qin Shang were left on the scene. Qin Shang looked at Yi Xian, wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and then walked in front of Yi Xian. "What, you're not running?" Yi Xian shook his head. He naturally could not run. He had no way to run. He still had his sister with him. Qin Shang looked at Yi Xian. "You're strong, but looking at your clothes, you're not a rich person. Do you know? If you had helped me just now, you and I would have formed a good karma. Do you know what this good karma means to you?" Yi Xian glanced at Qin Shang. "Maybe it's an ill-fated relationship." Qin Shang sneered. "Bad karma?" "That's right, this is an ill-fated relationship." At this time, the curtain of the carriage was lifted, and Yi Ling walked out, wrapped in a thick layer of cloth. Yi Xian quickly threw away the stick in his hand and walked to Yi Ling. He said softly, "Did I disturb you?" Yi Ling nodded slightly. She glanced at Qin Shang, who was not far away, and asked softly, "Brother, are you all right?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'm fine." As soon as Yi Xian's voice faded, more than a dozen men arrived not far behind Qin Shang. The leader of the group dismounted and walked to Qin Shang's side. "Miss, are you all right?" Qin Shang turned around and slapped the man's face. "Nothing." "Why didn't you wait for me to die?" The man hurriedly knelt on one knee. This subordinate was late. "Please forgive me, miss." Qin Shang snorted coldly. "I'll deal with you when we get back." With that, she looked at Yi Xian and his sister not far away. "Now it's time to deal with the matter between us." Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, "We brother and sister are just passing by. We don't want to cause trouble." Qin Shang walked in front of Yi Xian, and her beautiful face suddenly showed a touch of fierceness. "Don't want to cause trouble? Fine, come, kneel down and kowtow to me 100 times, and I'll let you brother and sister go today. How about it?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Just because I didn't let you use me? With all due respect, I don't owe you anything. Why should I help you?" Qin Shang walked in front of Yi Xian, and her smile was a little fierce. "I want you to understand the consequences of not helping me." When Qin Shang spoke up to this point, Yi Xian suddenly became violent. Before she could react, Yi Xian suddenly slapped her face. Slap. A loud slap resounded in the dark night. Qin Shang was directly slapped to the ground. At this moment she was completely stunned. She hadn't expected that the man in front of her would dare to slap her in such a situation. On the other side, those people immediately rushed towards Yi Xian after they recovered from their shock. But they quickly stopped, because Yi Xian's foot had stepped on Qin Shang's abdomen. Yi Xian looked coldly at Qin Shang, who was under his foot. It turns out that some people don't listen to others. After saying that, he leaned over and slapped Qin Shang's face. Slap. At this moment, Qin Shang's beautiful face directly swelled up. "How dare you?" The man who led the group shouted angrily. "Do you know who she is?" "She's the young miss of Luoqing's Qin family." Luoqing. Of course Yi Xian knew this city. It was very close to Qingqing. Yi Xian glanced at the man who spoke. "If I were you, this time instead of threatening, I would quickly apologize and admit my mistake." Harsh words? Anyone would say that. However, it was often the most incompetent person who said harsh words. The more incompetent a person was, the more powerful his words were. I'm sorry." At this moment, under Yi Xian's foot, Qin Shang suddenly spoke. "Young master, I have eyes but fail to recognize an expert. I hope young master can be magnanimous and forgive me. My Qin family will reward you handsomely." Yi Xian lowered his head and looked at Qin Shang. The latter's face had completely lost its previous ferocious expression. There was only a pitiful and delicate look on her face, but her hands were tightly clenched. Yi Xian smiled slightly. The next moment he suddenly stepped on Qin Shang's throat. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was heard. Qin Shang's eyes were wide open. There was disbelief and regret in her eyes. Seeing Yi Xian kill Qin Shang, the people not far away were stunned. Yi Xian withdrew his foot and returned to Yi Ling's side. He gently rubbed Yi Ling's little head. She's not begging for mercy. She just wants to get away temporarily and then take revenge on us. He was not a person who liked to explain, but he did not want to be seen as a cold-blooded and heartless person in his sister's eyes. Yi Ling shook her head slightly. She hugged Yi Xian's arm tightly. Whether Big Brother is right or wrong, I will always stand on Big Brother's side. A trace of warmth flowed in Yi Xian's heart. He turned his head and looked at the people not far away. What's wrong? Aren't you going to do anything? The strength of these guards in front of him was below 4th grade. To him they were not a threat at all. The man who led the group stared at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian spoke indifferently. Qing Qing. My surname is Yi. The man spoke in a low voice. Qing Qing. Your surname is Yi. You're from the Yi clan. Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. I'm not from the Yi clan really? How could the man believe that? He waved his right hand and those people were about to take Qin Shang's corpse away. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly walked over to Qin Shang's corpse, and then he lightly hooked his right foot. A black pouch on Qin Shang's waist flew directly into his hand. The expression of the man who led the group in the distance instantly became extremely unsightly when he witnessed this scene. The man stared fixedly at Yi Xian and then he said, "The Yi clan of Qing Qing, my Qin clan will remember this." As soon as he finished speaking, the man and the others turned around and left with Qin Shang's corpse. They naturally didn't dare attack because Qin Shang was at the Qi-controlling realm. However, Qin Shang hadn't even been able to resist a single attack just now. Even though Yi Xian had taken them by surprise, it would be useless if he didn't possess sufficient strength. The man and the others were very clearly aware that Yi Xian wasn't someone they could go against. To put it in simpler terms, they were afraid of death. After the man and the others left, Yi Xian opened the black pouch, and his expression instantly changed. Spirit stones. There were 16 spirit stones within the black pouch. The so-called spirit stones were spirit stones that contained the spirit chi of heaven and earth. These spirit stones were of great help to cultivators. Spirit stones were divided into low grade, high grade, top grade, jade grade, immortal grade, and divine grade. Even low-grade spirit stones were rare in Qing Qing, but this pouch was filled with high-grade spirit stones. Moreover, there were even top-grade spirit stones within it. A single low-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for at least 100 gold, and 100 gold was sufficient to allow an ordinary family to live happily for over 10 years. Yet now there were 16 high-grade spirit stones within this pouch. Even the Yi clan didn't have that many high-grade spirit stones. I'm rich. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned serious as he kept the pouch. He didn't know where Qin Shang got so many high-grade spirit stones, but he was sure that whether it was the Qin family or the 3 middle-aged men who chased after Qin Shang, none of them would easily give up on this bag of high-grade spirit stones. The lifeline of an aristocratic family was a gold mine. However, in order to become rich, to break away from the low-level aristocratic families and climb up the ranks, the only way was to use the spirit stones. Only with the spirit stones could one cultivate more powerhouses. With so many spirit stones, an aristocratic family could cultivate a few Qi-controlling realm powerhouses, or even ascendant realm powerhouses. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian quickly extinguished the bonfire and left with Yi Ling in the carriage. Just as Yi Xian had expected, half an hour after he left, a middle-aged man and an old man appeared at the place where Yi Xian was previously. This middle-aged man was the Qin clan's clan leader, Qin Ba, a true ascendant realm powerhouse. The old man behind him was also at the ascendant realm. Qin Ba glanced at the surroundings and said in a low voice, "I heard that the Yi clan has a one chosen by heaven, Yi Lang, and he even caused a phenomenon. Could it be him?" Even though Qing Qing and Luo Qing were close, there was still a certain distance between them. The Qin clan wasn't a big force, so their intelligence was rather backward. They still didn't know the current situation of the Yi clan in Qing Qing. The old man behind Qin Ba said in a low voice, "It doesn't matter if it's Yi Lang or not, he's definitely a member of the Yi clan. The Yi clan is definitely related to this matter." Qin Ba nodded and said coldly, "I'll make a trip to Qing Qing and demand an explanation from the Yi clan." As for that person, he shouldn't have gone far. Qin Yu, follow him. If you catch up to him, it's Yi Lang. Don't underestimate him. The old man called Qin Yu nodded. He tapped the ground lightly with the tip of his foot and leaped into the air like a spirit ape, disappearing into the distant night. Qin Ba clenched his right hand slowly, and his expression was cold. What a great Yi clan. With that, he turned around and disappeared into the distance. In the dark night, Yi Xian drove the carriage quickly. Fortunately, there was a faint moonlight so he could barely see the road. Brother, why did that woman make things difficult for us? Because she thinks we're easy to bully. Does that mean we're easy to bully? Many people are like that. They bully you because they think you're easy to bully. In this world, if you're not ruthless, you won't be able to stand firm. Brother, you've killed a lot of people, haven't you? Yes. I might kill even more people in the future. Why? I don't have a good temper. I can't take it. If someone provokes me, I want to kill them. Chapter 16. The young man drove the carriage swiftly through the night, and the young woman was holding tightly onto the young man's arm. Her head was resting on the young man's shoulder, and her eyes were closed. Obviously, she'd fallen asleep. The young man glanced at the young woman from time to time, and his eyes were filled with tender affection. You really dote on your younger sister. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly resounded in Yi Xian's mind. Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he heard her, and then he smiled. I'm her older brother. If I don't dote on her, then who would? She said, You're a qualified older brother. Yi Xian chuckled and said, Senior, I heard that sword immortals can split mountains and rivers with a single swing of the sword. Is that true? She replied, It's true. Yi Xian instantly felt a sense of longing when he heard this. A sword immortal. To soar through the world on a sword and see all the mountains and rivers. That was what Yi Xian wanted as well. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman said, So long as you work hard, then you'll have a chance to become a sword immortal as well. Yi Xian grinned, I will. Once I'm able to fly on a sword, then I'll take my younger sister to see the entire world. She said, Look at how promising you are. Yi Xian roared with laughter and sped up. 2 hours later, a wisp of dawn had appeared in the horizon. The sky was bright, but it was raining. Yi Xian raised his head and noticed that the rain was growing heavier. It wasn't suitable for traveling any longer. Yi Xian sped up, and it didn't take long for him to see an estate at the center of a mountain in the distance. From where he was standing, the estate was quite old and desolate. Yi Xian frowned slightly when he saw the estate. Why is there an estate deep within a mountain? He didn't want to stop, but the rain was growing heavier and was accompanied by violent winds. It was truly unsuitable for traveling. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he withdrew the map that Liu had given him. He found his current location on the map, and it wasn't marked as a dangerous area. Yi Xian felt a little relieved. Then he stopped the carriage in front of the mansion. The door of the mansion was wide open. Yi Xian sized up the mansion in front of him. Upon closer inspection, the mansion had clearly been abandoned for a long time. Weeds grew under the surrounding walls. Seeing that the rain had no intention of stopping, Yi Xian carried Yi Ling into the abandoned mansion. The two of them came to a hall. There were 2 people in the hall. One was a gray-robed elder, and the other was a youth around 17 or 18 years old. The 2 of them were next to each other, so it was obvious that they were together. When the old man saw Yi Xian and his sister, he only took a glance before withdrawing his gaze. As for the youth, he smiled and nodded his head as a greeting. Yi Xian nodded slightly, then brought his sister to sit at the side. Yi Xian started a fire, and then he took out 2 turkeys and started roasting them. When he saw this, the eyes of the youth suddenly lit up, and then he ran over to Yi Xian. I'm Jiang Yuki. How should I address you, brother? Yi Xian glanced at the youth. Yi Xian. Jiang Yuki chuckled. It's fate that we met. What do you think? Yi Xian pointed at the turkey on the fire. Do you want to eat it? Jiang Yuki was slightly stunned, and then he nodded vigorously. Yi Xian passed the turkey to the youth. It's yours. Jiang Yuki didn't refuse, and he took it and slowly roasted it himself. Jiang Yuki glanced at Yi Xian and chuckled. Brother, although you are only at the air transformation realm, your foundation is so solid that it is not much weaker than mine. When he heard this, Yi Xian's hand paused slightly, but he quickly returned to normal. You're unfathomable. This was the feeling that the youth in front of him gave him. Actually, he didn't know that the feeling he gave the youth was the same. The youth's eyebrows twitched. 2 moves. As if he thought of something, he said again, Don't go overboard. At this moment the old man nearby suddenly said, "Don't bully others." When he heard the old man's words, Yi Ling, who was beside Yi Xian, was instantly unhappy. She glanced at the old man. "Old man, my brother is also very powerful. Maybe my brother is bullying him." The old man glanced at Yi Ling. "Is that so?" Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "Then let's exchange 2 moves." Yi Xian and Jiang Yuki walked to the side. Jiang Yuki smiled. "Can we begin?" Yi Xian nodded. As soon as Yi Xian nodded, Jiang Yuki disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, a fist landed on Yi Xian's chest. However, Yi Xian's fist also landed on Jiang Yuki's chest. Bang! Both of them retreated at the same time. After retreating for about a dozen steps, both of them stopped almost at the same time. Opposite Yi Xian, Jiang Yuki sized up Yi Xian and said in surprise, "Your physical body is even stronger than I imagined." Yi Xian said, "Yours too." His punch just now felt like it landed on an iron plate. Jiang Yuki smiled. "Our country of Jiang is really full of talents. After I came out of the palace I saw, aha." At this moment the old man nearby suddenly spoke. Jiang Yuki glanced at the old man helplessly. "Pavilion Elder, what's the point of traveling if you have to worry about everything?" The old man shook his head. "The hearts of the people outside are complicated." Jiang Yuki smiled. "It doesn't matter. I can tell with one look that this brother is a straightforward person. He doesn't seem like a scheming person." As he spoke he looked at Yi Xian and cupped his fists. "Brother Yi, I am Jiang Yuki, the 10th prince of the Jiang country." "A prince?" Yi Xian was a little surprised. He didn't expect to meet a prince of the Jiang country at this place. Recollecting his thoughts, Yi Xian cupped his fists. "Yi Xian is just a nobody." Hearing this, Jiang Yuki laughed. "Brother Yi, with your strength, it's only a matter of time before you become famous." Yi Xian shook his head and didn't say anything. He didn't care about fame. Fame could often kill people. At this moment, the rain gradually subsided. The old man stood up. "Your Highness, it's time to go." Jiang Yuki nodded slightly. He picked up the roast chicken that was already roasted to a golden yellow color and looked at Yi Xian. "Brother Yi, I have to go somewhere else. Goodbye." As he spoke up to this point he seemed to have thought of something. He took out a command token and passed it to Yi Xian. "Brother Yi, this is my command token. It should be of some use in the imperial city. Brother Yi, don't refuse it. Otherwise, I won't dare to eat this roast chicken of yours." Yi Xian glanced at Jiang Yuki and accepted the jade token. When he saw Yi Xian accept the jade token, Jiang Yuki chuckled. "See you in the future." As soon as he finished speaking, the other old men turned around and disappeared at the entrance of the hall. Yi Xian looked at their backs and didn't speak for a long time. Outside the estate, the old man spoke in a low voice. "Your Highness intends to rope him in?" Jiang Yuki grinned. "He's a swordsman. But he was able to fight me equally without drawing his sword. If he did, then I'm afraid even I wouldn't be confident in my ability to defeat him." As he spoke, he turned around and glanced at the abandoned estate. "As expected of someone that kingdom and thinks highly of. I didn't come all the way here in vain." The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, "Even though his foundation is solid and his combat strength isn't ordinary, he's all alone in the end. He doesn't have any clan or sect behind him, so his future is limited. Moreover, he doesn't have any clan or background, so his help to you is practically negligible. Perhaps it's exactly because of this that the eldest prince and the 9th princess didn't send anyone to Pine City." Jiang Yuki chuckled. "Big brother's mother is from the Yu clan, and it's the second most powerful clan in my Jiang kingdom. Even my imperial father has to fear it. On the other hand, my 9th sister is the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies and controls almost 50% of the troops in my Jiang kingdom. So, they naturally wouldn't take a liking to these ordinary geniuses." The old man said, "Then why did you come all the way here, Your Highness?" Jiang Yuki spoke softly, "I don't have any advantage when compared to them. They can have their eyes set high but I can't. Perhaps my befriending them today will allow me to obtain an extraordinary assistance in the future?" The old man shook his head. A swordsman was very rare indeed. However, if it was just a swordsman, then it would be meaningless unless it was a grandmaster in the sword Dao. But how difficult was it to become a grandmaster in the sword Dao? There was only a single grandmaster in the Jiang kingdom. Moreover, that grandmaster was already 90 years old. It had been almost 50 years since a grandmaster in the sword Dao had appeared in the Jiang kingdom. In the main hall. "Big brother, was that person really a prince?" Yi Ling asked curiously. Yi Xian nodded. "It should be." Yi Ling spoke softly. He seems to have been waiting for Big Brother on purpose. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Ling and smiled. Even among the aristocratic families, there are some who want to form cliques to strengthen their forces, not to mention the royal family. As he spoke, he gently rubbed Yi Ling's little head. Big Brother only wants to cure your typhoid. Big Brother has no interest in fighting for power. Yi Ling gently hugged Yi Xian. Big Brother, can I cultivate in the future? Yi Xian smiled. Of course you can. Of course it doesn't matter if you can't. Big Brother will work hard to become stronger and protect you for the rest of your life. Yi Ling smiled sweetly and hugged Yi Xian tightly. Although I really want Big Brother to protect me, I want to protect Big Brother even more. Yi Xian was about to speak when a voice came from the side. What a deep sibling relationship. As the voice fell, an old man walked in. It was Qin clan's elder, Qin Yu. Seeing this person, Yi Xian clenched his right hand and glanced at Yi Ling. Go to the side. Yi Ling glanced at the old man and whispered, Big Brother, be careful. Saying so, she obediently retreated to the side. Qin Yu sized up Yi Xian. Hand over those spirit stones and I'll leave you and your sister a whole corpse. Yi Xian clenched his fists and his face was ashen. He didn't speak. Qin Yu sneered. What? You want to fight? You're only at the Qi Change realm, but the old man is at the levitation realm. I don't even need one move to kill you. Although he said so, he was secretly on guard. Having lived to this point, he was not stupid and would not underestimate his enemy. Yi Xian said in a low voice, If I hand over that thing, can you let us brother and sister live? Qin Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. Bargaining? As he spoke, he slowly clenched his right hand. In an instant, his clothes bulged up, and he seemed like a lion that was accumulating strength and waiting to pounce. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he withdrew a black pouch and tossed it at Qin Yu. Qin Yu was delighted when he saw the black pouch and he hurriedly caught it. However, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him. Qin Yu's expression remained unchanged and he sneered, Old man, I knew you would play tricks. As he spoke, he flipped his right hand up and pressed it down. An explosion resounded. Bang! Yi Xian's punch had just been launched when his figure was blasted against the wall that was over 10 m away. The old man didn't stop after he blasted Yi Xian back, and he pressed forward and charged at Yi Xian instead. Yi Ling's expression changed drastically. Big Brother? She immediately pounced over to Yi Xian and hugged Yi Xian tightly. However, the old man's palm didn't stop there, and it slapped down towards the siblings. To be more precise, it was slapping down towards Yi Ling. Yi Xian's eyes almost split apart from rage when he witnessed this scene, and his mind had gone blank. It didn't take long for the old man's palm to come closer and closer. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly pulled Yi Ling behind him, and then the Lingxiao sword appeared in his grasp in the next moment. In the blink of an eye, a low sword howl resounded. He only had a single thought in his mind when he executed this attack. Kill. I must kill. Decide life and death with a single strike. At the same time, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly resounded within the pagoda. That fellow. He has a strong desire to kill anyone who touches his younger sister. P.S. I'm begging for all the tickets. Those who don't have tickets can do so, and those who have tickets can help me count them. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.